Good evening. Welcome. Hello, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, everything in between, as Fleshy likes to say. What is it?
Bastards, bitches, and non-binary witches.
Non-binary witches. What's up, everybody? We have a very special guest tonight with us, the illustrious, what do you like to call yourself today?
Alex. Nice and easy.
I was suggesting, just for the fun of it, saying Young K.
Young K
for the thumbnail.
I put Alex K. I figured that would be good enough. So what is up, Alex with a K? What is up, Alex with a K? How you doing, sister? It's really good to see you and have you on, and we're going to talk about some stuff, but yeah, it's good to see you. What's going on?
Not much. It's magic-wise, I feel like the only new development is involvement with Medusa.
Watch out, man. It seems like every time someone lands in Medusa's lap, something crazy happens. Nah, I'm kidding. I've had actually minimal experiences with Medusa, but for a little while there, I was definitely getting yanked in that direction, which is interesting as a guy, because usually people would assume that guys aren't supposed to. But I had a different, like, just like with Lilith, like there's a misunderstanding that Lilith is for women only. So you tell us more, because you're actively working with
I disagree. I think most guys are rock hard for Medusa.
Wrong kind of calling, my friend. Wrong kind. So you talk first, and I will comment. How about that?
I haven't done much with her. It's a pretty recent start. What I've gotten so far is just a kind of like protectiveness, a kind of knowledge. The multiple different like backgrounds and stories that she comes from. You'll find some of them say that she was a sea witch before, or a sea goddess, or something of that breed. So you'll also find involvement there. It's general protection, mostly. It's I see less hatred towards men and more hatred towards anyone that does any kind of sexual assault, because that's what her
bingo.
Is.
Very good, very good. So which myth interpretation do you prefer? Because there is the one that says she was unfairly punished by Athena. Then there was there's more to it. Then there was she was raped. Then there was she slept. So which interpretation? And Fleshy, you go too.
I am apparently a little bit ignorant of this, so this is going to be me learning, because I always just thought she was a fucking dope Naga lady who was unfairly killed.
Well, there's a couple of different origin stories. One is that she was always a Gorgon. Then she was a priestess of the temple of Athena, which, depending upon which story you read, she either betrayed Athena by somehow getting Poseidon to rape her, I guess would be like the way to put it, which, whatever, or Poseidon raped her and then Athena punished her, or yet again, like this transformation was actually some kind of a boon for her. I don't know. There's, like I said, in history, there's like 4, 5, 6 different like interpretations depending upon who you read.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it's Greek, so they probably did some fucked up shit. The Greek gods don't have a good track record for mortal
I think
ethics.
it was the Roman one that deprecated her the most. I think it was the Roman version that deprecated her the most. But go ahead, Alex. You talk.
So the version that I go with most is that Medusa she had her sea goddess origins before her sea whatever that you will see related mostly in offerings, things like coral. Story-wise, she was worshiper of Athena. Worshiper of Athena got raped by Poseidon in Athena's temple. And the split is interesting, because in all the stories I found 2 main that it was like a punishment versus it was a blessing. It was Athena's blessing disguised as a curse so that no man could ever harm her again. That was her protection, is that they couldn't look at her, they couldn't get close to her. She was then on safe.
But then the question arises, if we believe the story of, what they made Clash of the Titans out of, if we believe the story of Perseus having to slay her as part of his quest, do we interpret this as like this is putting her out of her misery, or did she do something wrong, or was this like there's like, that's the thing, we can't like take this all too literally, right? We have to remember that these are myths that are designed to get us to associate, I guess a good word would be, or relate to these beings a certain way. So it's definitely up to interpretation. I don't like when people try to dogmatize it too much as it's only this, it can only be that. I like when people leave at least a little room for people to interpret it. So yeah, so keep going. So you're starting to work with Medusa, and lay it on us. What is your intentions with this, or how are you feeling pulled towards this, and why?
I mostly want to see what she can teach.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's the biggest hesitance I have is with the popularity. It's really hard to find anyone that works with her so much as it is like all the stories and all the TV shows and books that involve her somehow. I want to see what lessons I could get from her herself. I found the ring in an old antique shop local and just got like a draw to it. And I knew what it was, and I knew I needed it. But it seemed empty to get it and not do anything. So I smashed a tiny little hole in my wall and made an altar.
Okay, all right. Now, one thing that I would also layer into there is we'll say woke political stuff that and it's not, we're not gonna get political, but
here we go.
Hi, Fleshy. No, the woke the man-hating stuff that goes along with it, we'll say it like that. Okay, it's really like you want to get to know the spirit, not what everybody thinks about it, and that applies to all spirits, but there's certain ones that are like Lilith, like Medusa, and others that are really heavily dogmatized by a culture or a movement in a culture or a political view that can really make it like not a warning, but something I would be aware of is if you start like talking about this, especially like on TikTok or something, you're going to get, no matter what you say, there's going to be a group of people that are going to attack you probably, in my opinion, for doesn't matter which opinion you have on Medusa, you're going to get attacked by somebody, just like with Lilith. It's now luckily I didn't get that, but
not to play devil's advocate too much, but I feel like that's a good thing in a certain regard, because if you're getting non-resistance wherever you go, then to really that great, like, should be treading some new grounds. You should be stepping on some toes with whatever you do. There should be some people out there who hate.
I think it depends. I don't like toxic attitudes, and I don't like when people try to push me around, especially with we'll say social media cult bullshit. So there is a line, I think, and it's one thing to get like people questioning or treading new ground and people disagreeing. It's another thing when it's like, I'm going to curse you for 25 generations because how dare you work with Medusa as a man.
It's nice to avoid the toxicity, but if you're not pissing some people off, I don't think you're far enough.
That's true. Like I generally just ignore that stuff. I don't like drama. Like I am not a fan of drama because I guess I was raised old school, not in the old school where everyone should be respecting each other. The old school where it's like, I want to, like, I'm not like where I come from. You talk shit happens. You know what I mean? It's not, and I'm not saying that's the right thing. I'm just saying that's like
he's from a different generation.
No, a different generation and a different part of the town. Don't talk shit and you won't get your fat lip. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So, I'm not saying it's the way it should be. I'm just saying my internal compass, like, how dare you?
My present location is pretty. Keep your fucking mouth shut, or we'll take it outside.
Right? You'll notice that's why I'm generally polite to everybody, because it's like, where I come from, you say the wrong thing, you might get popped, and you don't want that. That's not what you want to live. It's not. So anyway. Let's give it. Yeah, Fleshy, go ahead.
Before we get into like serious conversation, I just realized when we started up the stream who you reminded me of, Alex, because like I said, you're doing the blonde thing. At least that's what it appears on camera now.
Yeah.
Fucking every time I see you, you're evoking more and more of Shamala Otep.
Oh shit.
I don't have that one in my conscious memory.
That's my dad's music. I
It's-
just don't.
I had forgotten they existed. I think they were my dad's music. No, I'm kidding.
I think
Metal. It's metal.
Poetic and politically active metal with hip hop influences.
How do you spell it?
OTEP.
EP, yeah. Like almost like it means what is it? Peace. You can either put an H in front of it, Hotep or OTEP. It means.
I forget, but yeah, everybody here, go listen to OTEP. They're fucking.
I think it means peace.
Dope.
I think it's at peace or something like that. I forgot. I'll have to look it up. And he's like, who? So let's give a good old welcome to all the people chatting. If you're new here tonight and you've never talked to us before, because of spammers that have been going crazy lately, we have it set so that, you must be subscribed for at least 1 month. No, I'm kidding. You must be subscribed for at least 1 minute. That was a joke. For at least 1 minute before you can comment. So if you're new here and you want to make comments, you want to ask questions of me, Fleshy, or the wonderful Alex, make sure you subscribe to this channel. You can unsubscribe when you're done. Okay? I'm not just trying to do this to get you to subscribe to me, but it does keep out the riffraff, all right? And if you are riffraff, we have blue wrenches in here who will smack you around.
But I
yes,
like
Fleshy,
the Russian porno bots.
I did too, but you know what? I already went through one computer. I don't want to have to reformat this one too for various reasons. Because I like to do internet bareback. I don't like to worry about tons of protection. So I'm kidding.
Ooh, okay. I'm not. You know what? I'm not going to comment on that. I just can't. Otherwise, I'm going to go off the deep end.
I mean, I have all my VPNs and stuff. I'm just kidding, guys. Relax. All right. So, yeah, let's give a warm welcome to everybody. Let's go through the, let me turn it off top chat. I don't know why it always defaults to that. Live chat, that's what I want. And Fleshy, you want to do the participants thing, or you want me to do it?
In the participants, I currently see AKA Morningstar, Asarte Azeroth, CM Helnikainen, Eddie Romanov, Go-Go, Mr. Zombie, Nina the motherfucking Mystic, Scarlet Bales, The Infernal Empire, Timothy Foster, and Wyatt Coverdale. So, welcome one and all, and thank you for being here. Hit us with your questions. Comment at Yepsen, YEPSEN, or at DH Thorne, or put it in all caps so it's easy for us to see them, and we'll try to answer some questions too as we go along here.
And of course, if you would be so generous, a super chat will always get you to the very top of the list. So those will always be responded to. No pressure, just putting it out there. So, okay, so I don't know if we have a topic for tonight, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I know, Alex, you and I were talking before the stream began. Yeah. Do you want to jump into that right now, or do you want to get into that later?
I'm good either way. I'm sure at some point it'll come up, but
okay.
Yeah, I can go with flow.
I mean, well, we are streaming with the great rant machine, so sooner or later something will happen. I will say I may have to go on the maybe an hour early tonight. My son just moved out. He joined the Navy last week, and we just basically stripped his room naked as a jaybird. As of yesterday, everything's gone, and sometime tomorrow I will be turning that into a fully dedicated new temple setup with a lot of stuff, and I'm probably going to be working on it tonight. I still have to sew some of the background drapery.
Watch him get back, just like, hey guys, I'm back from the, oh my God.
Yeah, no, we already discussed that, and it's like, the only way that would happen is if he washed out, and that could still take 8 months for that to happen anyway. So by the time he'd come back, he'd probably, like, I don't know. We're not going to sit on his room full of stuff for a year before we figure out he's not coming back. So there will be some videos talking about new temple stuff very soon. And that also means I'm probably going to be reopening my ritual services more like full time again, because part of the reason I held off was because I just wasn't inspired to use the space I have, and among other things. And setting up a new temple will change a lot. So it's going to be a meditation / ritual temple. So should be exciting. I'm really looking forward to showing you guys once it's ready. It's a very small room. It's only 10 by 10. So, it'll be what it is, but not many people can even say that. I'm very lucky. I saw somebody in our Discord. By the way, if you're not a member of our Discord, I recommend it. It's a lot of fun. Someone on our Discord mentioned that they don't even have a space they can do rituals. So maybe that's a topic we can also cover tonight. So maybe we'll bring that up at some point too.
CM says DH's kid goes, my parents kicked me out and are renting my room to spirits. And,
actually, he was really happy to hear that. Like he's really stoked. He's like, I'm like, you don't mind that I'm going to be like, I don't know, working with like, you know, the devil according to other people in your room. He's like, no, fuck, do it. Yes. You know, he's not as into it as Alex, but pretty into it.
We have a super chat from Scarlett Bales. She says, great show, great conversation as usual. Congratulations on the new temple space.
That's very generous.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Thank you so much. Scarlett's been a good friend of the channel, and you know, we've had conversations on the side, and she seems like really good people. You know, even things that we might have disagreed with, you know, each other about on whatever, we've always gotten along, and I appreciate Scarlett so much. And she's always been a supporter of me and, you know, EA and people related to EA and all that. And I mean, as far as I know, it's always been a good relationship back and forth. So appreciate you so much. Thank you, Scarlett.
You know what? Actually, I have a question for you, Alex, because you know, DH, you were saying, or at least people were commenting in the chat that they don't have a dedicated space for all of this. And for some people, it's just because you can't be that open about it and whatnot. Alex, obviously you're in a situation where you can be very open about it, and if anything, it's encouraged.
Not much to hide.
But that being said, I imagine you have dedicated spaces. What do you prefer? Do you prefer the dedicated space, or do you prefer, say, getting out in nature and improvising something? Like what flows with you better?
It's so couple examples. I've got the little hole in the wall I punched in for Medusa. So I've done a couple things there. Most of the like rituals I do in the garage. We do have a when we sacrificed the white witch, the white pregnant goat a couple years back, we made a little clearing, put rocks around it. There's a gong there and everything. It's great. We me and my boyfriend sacrificed a couple chickens there. We sacrificed a chicken and a rooster. So we've got like that set space for that.
Okay.
Pretty much the only time I go outside is to the sacrificial clearing for some kind of animal, some kind of blood spilt.
Gotcha. But it's still like a dedicated space that you have cleared away. So
yeah.
Okay. That's it. I am envious of that in a way.
What in particular?
Oh no, just the dedicated space. Not a lot of people are in a position where, because even when it's outside, there's like a dedicated space for it. I think most people, I don't know, etymology and all that, most people have a dedicated space even away from the home, but it's a public space, or it's somewhere where it's only private for so long. It's temporary.
Yeah. Sort of like in my house, we have like a tiny little cabin cottage, right? It's less, it's not even like 800 square feet. It's like 600-700 square feet. Really small apartment. And we basically, everything has like double or triple duty. You know, this is part of my living room, but I do rituals out here late at night. In my bedroom is a small little ritual space that I've set aside, a little bit fancier. But this is all like everything, you know, it's actually not really good for your mentality if you do it wrong, and we do it wrong, like we're too cluttered. You know, the right way would be to like have a very empty space and then rearrange that space every time you want to use it for something, but we don't do that.
I mean, is it working? Like, is your magic getting done?
Yeah, it was, but at the same time, there was this one impulse that I had sometime last year, which was part of the reason I wanted to buy a home at some point, was so I could really dedicate a room. But there was this impulse that was like, I got this feeling like, stop using these other spaces, dedicate something sacred. I mean, you're a professional and you're doing this, you know, in a way that it's not that it's wrong, but it felt like dedicate a space to this and really, really honor it. And one of the problems is we are cluttered. And we you know, like stuff will just pile up in the areas that I want to use. Even if I keep them clean, sooner or later you just kind of go, yeah, fuck it, I'll put something here for a minute. 10 minutes goes by, an hour goes by, 5 days goes by, and you're like, fuck, I shouldn't have left anything like that anywhere near my altar or anything like that. Damn it. And it sort of desanctifies everything, if that makes sense.
It's kind of like having clutter in the kitchen. It's like, this is supposed to be where I cook and eat, and there's all this shit in the way.
Yeah, and it's like that, exactly like that. So some people, it doesn't matter. And it's one thing if it's filled with purposeful stuff. If my ritual space was just cluttered because I had that many implements of magic, okay, so be it. But if it's cluttered because I've got laundry in the room or whatever.
Like a voodoo clutter versus a house clutter. Like there's...
Exactly. House clutter shouldn't really mix in with your magical clutter, okay? They can be cluttered, it's fine. So when I say clutter, don't misunderstand. I don't mean that you can't have a messy altar. I mean clutter as in, if you've got bills on your altar, you're doing it wrong, okay? And I don't, but like a few steps away from that. And it pollutes things. And so I got this really strong pull to, no, once you get a ritual room, you'll be back to it. So when you ask, has my magic been working? Yes and no, because I have not been mentally in the right space anyway. So I've sort of been mostly just involved in shadow work and meditation and working through all of the things that are going on. But I'm feeling like, with the various changes in astrology that have just happened, we just had Neptune go back to normal. We just had the Venus shift. All these other things are going on, and I can feel it. This new moon was definitely a everything's changing kind of feeling, and I'm going with it. I'm going to ride that new moon ride, and I feel like in my heart, like it's going to culminate. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I haven't looked up the astrology for this, but I feel like whatever it is going to culminate for me like midsummer in like a really good way. So I'm thinking
that sounds like the
midsummer's
most greaser werewolf thing. It's that new moon ride. You know what I'm saying? That time of the month when you just go out and you
let me pop that collar. Yeah, that new moon ride. Yeah.
Windows down, West Coast hip hop on the radio. Just that new moon ride.
Classic West Coast hip hop. Not this fucking. Not this. Shit.
So let me catch up real quick. We've got 2 super chats since we were talking. From Jacob Dow, says, "Love your father's work, Alex. Any chance that you'll be writing any occult related works for publication? If so, I look forward to it." And real quick, from Nina the Mystic as well, with that 666. "Greetings from Canada. Love the new space. Such a nice feeling getting the space to do what you love. Appreciate you both."
Thank you guys so much. Yeah, I mean, I would like to talk a little bit about your dad, although I don't want it to be all about your dad. You're your own person and you're developing your own practices.
He's pretty fucking cool, to be fair.
Yeah, well, I like him,
We're biased.
Yeah, we're biased, But yeah, do you plan on following in any of his footsteps, I guess is the question. I guess that's how it could be phrased.
I can't see a reason not to. I'm not sure where I'd go with it. I'm not sure which direction I'd try and take. I really, really like writing. I don't think writing long informational is my thing. That doesn't flow so much for me. It's not as flowery as I like it to be.
Yeah, those are 2 completely different skills.
And honestly, there's no rush. You're young. There's no rush to become an author yet. Build your life experiences. But you know what? Practicing though is a good thing. If you practice and write little articles for him, little snippets for books or whatever, get your pen wet, so to speak, and just explore that for fun. You don't have to write a big book. You could write a chapter. You could write an essay and submit it, and I'm sure your dad, if it wasn't bad, I'm sure he would accept it. So
I feel like the biggest difficulty with that is that most of my information comes directly from the source. Like it is, I do have all the books and they are all used as resources. Like it's a pretty known information type.
You're just getting started, so sort of getting started. You've got. But some of that beginner experience is important. Let's put it this way, okay? I could be writing books for advanced magicians, And to be honest, I don't really make too much of a distinction between the basics and the advanced, because for most people, the basics are really advanced, because most people don't get the basics. They really don't. They're superstitious about the basics, and it flies right over their head. So to be honest, the basics are pretty advanced, but most of my writing is meant for beginner to intermediate types anyway. And I get the most time instructing and talking to and mentoring people somewhere in the beginner spectrum. When more advanced people come to me, it's because they either don't have the confidence to believe that they can do it without a mentor, or they just want to talk to somebody like me. And at that point, we often talk basics anyway, because the basics are the most profound part. They're the parts that explain the universe potentially, and they're more interesting to me anyway. Like I'm more interested in not how to soup up a Lamborghini. I want to know why the combustion engine works in the first place. Like I want to know why fire hot. Like that's what I want to know, right?
You're sitting there tearing apart every toaster you can get your hands on, trying to figure out why it works.
Like I'm more about the electricity in the toaster. Like I'm like, what makes like how do magnets work? What's up with that shit? You know, like that's where I'm at.
Classic reference.
Gotcha. I was hoping somebody would laugh at that. God damn it. But no, that is more my speed. I'm more interested in those things, which is why a lot of what I do isn't about, you know, the technology so much as it is about the principles behind it. I think that's more interesting to me, but maybe that's just me.
I can definitely tell, you know, being on the stream every week with you. Yeah, you're not so interested in what can you do with it. You're interested in knowing how it ticks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think ultimately what this teaches us is asking yourself what you can do with it, I think, is a faulty question, because I think if you understood what you were doing, you'd realize you can do not just anything with it, but everything that you do is already it. From drinking your soda can to blinking your eyes, to it's all part of it. It's all based. Your entire reality is magic. You know, if we go with the Vedic understanding of Maya, it's another word for magic too. It doesn't just mean illusion. And all the entire reality that you experience is a form of glamour magic. And that means literally everything around you that you think is mundane reality, that's actually the magic. That's actually the magic manifestation. Yes.
I find that interesting because you're like, to put it in my terms a little bit, you're like the guy who's like, oh, all these idiots playing games on their computer and everything, they don't really understand the programming, the elegance that goes on behind the machine. And it's just like dedicated to like punching in only Unix commands and taking forever to do everything because they're coding in binary, absolute fucking power over the machine. Where I'm just like, how can I stream VR porn with this shit? I'm kind of curious where on that spectrum of fucking caveman to like absolute power and understanding would you say you lie, Alex? Like, are you a low magic or high magic type?
So this is around the territory of the thing I was talking to you about earlier that I wanted to get in some point. The realities.
Good segue.
Thank you. What percentage?
Sigu, pronounce it correctly.
What percentage real do you think you are? Is the way that I ask that. Right now, I'd say I'm a good 73. It's everybody's got their reality and their program. Some people, I don't think they have a reality. I think it's just program. They don't have thoughts. They don't have reason. They don't do anything unless you go up to them and press A. Most people, I think, have under 15%, but you'll find the couple few, and it's the people that do things that stand out, that are making their own decisions, thinking their own thoughts. Anyone that's not going with the program that you'll see has a higher understanding of reality.
Well, there's a double-edged sword to this thought, because from one frame of reference, we'll say, one perspective, one frame of reference, you can make arguments in both directions. So here's how I think of it. What we're really talking about is kind of like free will. We're really kind of talking about free will. Are you reactionary, or do you respond. There is a difference. Do you respond to things or do you react to things? Do you follow your free will or do you make choices?
Yes.
And here's the thing that people don't get, and it may sound like semantics on the surface, but you really got to really kind of pick out the superficial shit. There is a difference between choosing and acting according to free will. If you are ever in a situation, I don't mean where you lack knowledge and you have to have the knowledge to pick a direction. I mean, if you're ever in a situation where you feel like you have to make a choice, you're not actually exhibiting free will in that moment. You're actually what I would consider like constipated when it comes to your free will. Because generally speaking, you know already subconsciously what your decision is going to be, but you are trying to rationalize your way out of it or going against the grain somehow. Free will is effortless and inevitable. Free will doesn't feel like you have a choice. When you're actually acting out your free will, you just flow like in that perfect alpha state where you're just, you know, like when you're jamming on a guitar or whatever. I don't play guitar, so I wouldn't know guitar, but playing a musical instrument or something, and you're perfectly in the zone. You're driving a car and you're bobbing and weaving around the turns. That flow state. When you're in that flow state, your free will is being actualized perfectly. When you're in a situation where you got to stop and think and decide, that is not when you are aligned with your free will. Now here's an interesting point though. You're always acting according to free will, always. The thing is, when you are subjected to a choice, when you feel like you must make a decision because A is unpalatable and B is unpalatable or whatever, when you're sitting there hemming and hawing about it, that's when you're in an egoistic situation where you're worried about you need your ego validated more. In other words, the reason you're having trouble making a decision is because of an egoistic issue. You usually know, and I don't know if I told this story last time or if it was in a private conversation or a lesson or what, but I had an experience a couple of years back when my father lost his foot. He was riding his motorcycle down the highway in the middle of the night, hit a deer, came off the bike, and probably got his foot run over by a semi or something, because the doctor said chances are it wasn't coming off the bike that did that, because he broke his knee too. So he said probably usually one or the other breaks, not both, and the way the foot was broken was like it was crushed. So he probably came off the bike. It
wasn't the deer who ate it.
Well, yeah, I think the deer was like ripped in half. Like that's how bad he hit it. So he, of course, was just about dead. A Marine showed up, like, you know, like at some point, tourniqueted his leg. They took him to the hospital. Anyway, we were faced with a choice. And the doctor came out and he said, look, there's really three choices here. We can A, try to leave the foot on and try to reconstruct it, but this was so devastatingly destroyed that even if we reattached it, it would literally be just a lump of meat that was shaped like a foot that wouldn't be usable as a foot ever again. It would literally just be there and it would hurt and he wouldn't be able to walk. He'd be in a wheelchair for the rest of his life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
The other two options was we can amputate it above the knee or below the knee. Above the knee was the safest option because it was the furthest away from the damage, so they could really do a clean amputation, but he would also probably never walk right again because the prosthetic would be really difficult to adapt to. Or we can go below the knee, which has a much higher chance of being able to walk normally at some point, but it's also the second riskiest one where it comes to infection and problems. So they recommended the below the knee. Now, when they asked me that question, my sister was there and he put it to both of us because he was in a coma, my father. So we couldn't ask him. So we had to decide what to do. Do I cut off my father's foot, knowing that he is a very outdoorsy kind of person who would consider that, like, I know it would fuck me up. Like, I mean, I can't go hunting. I can't go hiking. I can't do anything. I can't fight. I can't do anything. Oh shit. It would fuck me up. So when he asked us that question, my sister was pretty much immediately knew what she was going to do. And so did I. But the problem was I knew what I was going to answer, but for whatever reason, I belabored the question. I asked a lot more questions, which is the thorough thing to do. Don't get me wrong. But I was sort of trying to rationalize the decision because I didn't want to make it.
You wanted to be able to defend yourself to Dad when he woke up wanting to kick your ass, but realizing he couldn't.
I mean, that was definitely maybe part of it, but it was also defending myself to myself. And did I want to be responsible for making this decision?
I am
So
not a crook.
So I wasn't really acting according to free will, even though I was free to make whatever choice I wanted. So in other words, I was completely free. I could have made any choice I wanted, but for whatever reason, I wasn't allowing myself to make the choice. I was belaboring it. And my free will was saying, below the knee, obviously, that's the best choice. Why don't you just do that? But I'm sitting there fighting it. So I know I'm kind of saying a lot that maybe doesn't need to be said to illustrate the point, but people really confuse free will and freedom of choice in a way that maybe is unhealthy. And in Taoism, what I'm describing is called Wu Wei. When you're going with the flow and you're really acting according to free will, it's called Wu Wei. It means you're with the Tao. It means you are not resisting the Tao, and the Tao is your higher will. It is the higher will of the divine, which you are in motion. So to go back to what you were saying, Alex, most people don't go with the Tao. Most people are not free. Now, sometimes the Tao means going against the flow of society, for sure. So don't misunderstand, by the way, people listening, what I'm saying means that, oh, you're a doormat, or you go along with what everybody does, or you react to everything and just respond. No. It means that you are following your own true free will without hesitation, without doubt, without the need to make choices. You are spontaneous and you're intuitive in your actions. You'll find that when you're doing that, even if you make a mistake, you weren't wrong. Hopefully that makes sense. But even if you make a mistake, you weren't wrong when you follow that pattern. And people who do that, like Alex said, you can tell, and they're more present. They're more present. They're not reactionary. They're not a robot. They're present. And they're experiencing reality almost like they're watching a movie, and they're like, whoa, this is wild. Whereas someone who's like a robot, they're reactionary. You say you suck, they say fuck you. You know, they don't. It's literally just tit for tat with their mind. And they're trained like a robot.
It's like a program.
Yeah, it's like a program.
Yeah, it's kind of, I see it as kind of like following the safety of the beaten path. It's, you know, because at some point there was a conscious decision of, no, go ahead.
I feel like a good amount of people have had the conscious decision. I've met, so going into this, I've gone through my tiny ass town, finding people of all sorts that I can try and fit into this. I met a kid that he was very, very real, but he was also very, very Christian and wasn't allowed to have those controversial thoughts. Mm-hmm. So he didn't talk about it. He suppressed it. He had the thoughts, and he had a pretty high percentage, it felt like, but he didn't want to. I met a chick that I snapped her out of it. Like, I was able to pull her into, whoa, what is reality? And she was in that for a minute. And then as soon as I stopped talking to her, it dropped down again. I think there are people that can make the decision to go, this is too much. I don't want to face it. I don't want to know what comes with it. I don't want to deal with the discomfort. I also think there's people that just can't. Like, you can try and wake them up. You can try and pull them out of it, and they just can't be real. They don't have the capacity.
Well, let's remember something. What you're really talking about too is what's someone's relationship with their ego, or is their ego aligned or not? Are they egoistic, or are they ego positive or something? Maybe we should come up with a different word. That it doesn't mean you get rid of your ego, by the way. That's a misunderstanding that people make. Whenever I'm talking about ego and it sounds like I'm shitting on the ego. No, the ego is very important and beautiful. The thing is, the ego needs to be aligned with the higher will, or it's actually a problem, right? It's kind of like eating food. If you eat food the right amount, you're healthy. If you eat too much, you're unhealthy. Eat too little, you're unhealthy. Ego is a lot like this. Ego has to be in alignment with the higher will, or else it's a detriment to your experience. When people are, the problem is, we are taught from the beginning of our human experience that we are that we're this body, and the identity that is attached to us is the one that they tell us. And we build from that foundation this thing that we think is us. And this ego is what dies, but the consciousness behind it never does. So this ego dies. It dies every moment because it's always changing, but we don't mind the little death. It's the big death that we're scared of. So people in general who haven't really been exposed to or awakened through anything, subconsciously they know that anything that will in any way cause ego dissolution or death is scary, because they don't realize that ego is just an illusion. They don't realize ego is a habit. It's an act. It's a story. It's a character you play. You can stop being you, who you think you are, any moment. And that's probably maybe one of the reasons I've had a lot of success, is because I know how to change myself, at least on a lot of levels. Most people don't know how to do that. So ego death is terrifying. And people who, like you're describing, their ego is validated by their worldview. Their ego is validated by the dogma, the doctrine, the fear, the belonging, the whatever it is. So they belong to a church. They don't want to be excommunicated or lose their church friends or have their parents. That's a piece of their ego. It's a very big piece because it's been imposed on them by others, but they're not a victim. They've accepted this imposition. They've decided that because human beings are pack animals, we don't like being out in the cold alone. You know, most humans can't do that. So when these people are subjected to these ideologies, especially ones like Orthodox Christianity, and I say Orthodox because there are variations of Christianity that I think we'd actually get along just fine with. Yeah. But Orthodox Christianity or things like it, you know, I guess Mormonism would count, Islam and stuff like that. Most of these things are generally they contain a mind virus that says, if you don't believe, you're going to hell, or you're broken and only through us can you be saved. And those things always support the ego. They validate the ego. And that's the demiurge, if we want to get Gnostic for a moment. The demiurge is just another word for ego before they understood the word ego. That's really what it is. And everyone's got demiurge in them. Everyone's got a demiurge that they are dealing with. This demiurge is the most personified archetypal form of ego you can imagine, but it also can be called the Ouroboros. If you look at planetary celestial theurgy, where you go from planet to planet to planet, and you end up Saturn and then the serpent around it, that serpent is Karanzan, Legion, the demiurge, your ego. That's the final stage, is you have to transcend that egoistic belief in yourself. So someone who's that robot, they are so deeply embedded in egoism that they are not present. They're constantly worried about the past, the future, and what people will think. And so they are programmed. That is literally what a program is. A program is a prior instruction that's stuck.
I think that there are definitely people that are stopped by the egoism. I see what you're saying. I understand that. And I do 100% agree that there are a lot of people that's the wall that's stopping them from being real. I think there's people that it's not even the egoism. I don't think they have a drive. I don't think they have,
no spark.
They have thought. I don't think there's any kind of, like, a therapist could pull them apart by a textbook, and it'd be by the textbook, because the book, what's written, what's supposed to happen, that's all that's there. There's nothing it's like presets. You meet the same people over and over and over in different skins, the same patterns, they say the same words, they dress the same, they have the same relationship with their parents almost every time.
There's something to that.
I've heard a lot of the whole, NPC.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, Fleshy. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically it. And I think there's even some, really old school Christian thought that I was recently illuminated to, that sincerely takes that mindset of most souls, if you will. There's a limited soul budget on Earth, and that most people here are without souls and are NPCs who walk around just purely adhering to programming and to challenge us. And that's just from that line of thought.
I don't know, because yes and no. I mean, here's the thing. Consciousness, the divine is in everything. That is my understanding from my gnosis of disobjectification. When I reach that samadhi or gnosis state, they're basically the same word. When I reach that state, I feel, to differing degrees, I've had really wild experiences that were like acid trips, but most of the time it's more subtle, because I'm usually just sort of, okay, I'm disobjectified now. When I recognize the divine, and I realized that all things are in divinity, and divinity is in all things. So on one hand, I don't agree that they're just NPCs, but I do agree that people demonstrate NPC behavior for whatever reason, and I don't know why. Like, I've never really tried to figure out why that is. I just assume that it is, like you said, they are, and this is why I say it's egoistic, because they're in there. They're patterned because their ego is so dense.
Can you humor a thought for me?
Sure.
What if the divine is in NPCs just as the divine is in things like trees and flowers?
Yeah, yep. And trees and flowers seem more hard to us.
They're still alive. They're still there. There is definitely still the divine in them, but it's a living creature. But it can think, it can communicate, but the thoughts behind it are very, very debatable.
Right, they're very patterned. I mean, I get what you're saying too. I mean, I know what you're talking about because I've run into people like that. And I've also known people that kind of slip in and out of that, if that makes sense. Like some people, they will be very predictable on one level, but then other times they'll surprise you. And they'll suddenly become, we'll say quick.
Okay.
That would be the old word. They're suddenly quick rather than dead.
They're the people
so I know what you mean.
Seem like they're asleep most of the time, and they just save those conscious moments for where it really counts for them.
Yeah. Well, I guess in psychology you have, which is often confused for like Zen non-attachment. That's why I don't like to call it detachment. But there is something called detachment, and some people are very detached, and they seem to lack, I don't want to just say empathy because that's not always what it is, but they seem to lack the ability to relate. And that lack of relation tends to make them reactionary and robotic in a lot of ways. They'll, someone who's gone through a lot of trauma, for example, they may, for whatever reason, have been browbeaten to the point where they don't like to show any kind of self-awareness. They literally just do what they're told and they don't think, and but some people do that aggressively, don't they? I think that's also what we're talking about, is people who do that aggressively, like, they want to crush you because they don't agree with you or something, right?
If this is going off on a little bit of a tangent, but if I can offer a question for you guys, I think on a certain level, we're all following a program. Like, who amongst us can really say that they haven't completely zoned out while on a walk or while driving? You'll hear it most often of just, I didn't even realize it, but suddenly I was home. Like, I just followed the routes I normally do, and I was home right there. So is it differentiated between it's our own programming or it's the collective conscious, if you will, going with the most tread route? Is there a meaningful distinction between those two if we are just following a program?
I'm not sure. I mean, one thing I thought of while I was listening to you, though, I don't know if it's related to what you're asking, because I sort of follow what you're saying, don't get me wrong. But it's also, is our question about NPCs not just a way to validate our own ego at the same time? Is it not just a way for us to distinguish ourselves and thus validate our own ego?
Isn't everything to validate your own ego?
Yes, in a way it is. That's what mortal experience is. It's a validation of ego. So, but the question is, are we judging them in such a way that we maybe are missing the point? Are we sitting here going, oh, they're NPCs and we're not because I'm 70% or 80% or 40% or whatever. And it gives us a sense of identity to be, I'm an 80% or what are you? And it definitely hardens that egoistic shell, doesn't it, to think that way? And it's
yeah, go ahead. I would also argue that if you couldn't name percent, I feel like you'd be lower. And I know that's in the thinking that you're debating about, but if you're looking at it from within the thinking, it is, so much as you ask many, many people, baby on an altar, I ask many, many people, NPCs, reality, how real are you? Mm-hmm. And people that me and other magicians I know would mark as being low percent don't answer. They either say, oh, like, I don't know, 50 or what? That's weird. Or I don't think it would matter. And things like strange. Like
here's the deal.
They don't humor.
The difference of perspective maybe is also this. I recognize that everything that I think I am is an act. I think it's all fake. I know that D.H. Thorne is a fake. I know that he's an act. I don't do D.H. Thorne because I am commanded to or because I have to. I do D.H. Thorne because I want to. D.H. Thorne is an act that I portray as an avatar for me to experience this reality. I know that. Now, sometimes I forget that. Sometimes I will walk through my life and I'll be like, why the fuck don't people like my channel this week? Or why are they picking on EA? He's my friend. And I forget what I am. And if you ask me that question, I'm actually going to say I'm 0% because I know that D.H. Thorne is a lie. I know that from a Gnostic perspective, from a Samadhi perspective, from a transcendent perspective.
So I'm going to interrupt.
Sure.
You're speaking from first person, which is the differentiation between you, yourself, your consciousness, I guess we'll say, for lack of a better word, and D.H. Thorne. I'm not asking about D.H. Thorne. I'm not asking about the character you're experiencing it through. I'm asking about you. It's
obvious that person is 100% real because everything that we experience, in other words, consciousness is being. I mean, if you were to eradicate all of the distractions that we would consider mortal, ego, delusion, whatever, there are only three things that we know about the self, and that is it exists, it is conscious, and it is blissful. So yeah, it's 100% there. So in other words, maybe in your mind I'm getting a low score, but
no. I would argue that I don't know if this will offer perspective or if it'll miss the percent, how aware you are that you are you, would be the higher, and D.H. Thorne would be the lower. The knowledge of the separation, any kind of seeing cracks through reality or realizing, oh, it is just a game. It's all fake. That's
the real part that recognizes that. Now, the thing is, separation's a dirty word. We still use it for reference, but I don't feel separation from D.H. Thorne. I feel that D.H. Thorne is a mask, and it's not, there's no separation between me and the mask, but I am not the mask. It's like, I am not my skin, right? You're not your skin, but your skin is absolutely something that is you. I am not my foot, but my foot is absolutely something that is me. I am not D.H. Thorne, but D.H. Thorne is absolutely something that is me. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I sort of get, the whole concept, but maybe it's also just the Luciferian side of me that's always contrarian a little bit when I'm asked a question like that, and I go, no, fuck you, I'm a 0, because that's why. But that's also just me being edgy and I'm responding to the punky shit, and I like that. So, but yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. But like I said, one should ask, why do we ask this question at all? If one has the disobjectified understanding of the self as not this, one would say that we're always 100%. It's just that we pretend to be zeros once in a while. We pretend to be 15s, 10s, whatever. And we forget ourselves in that 10, 15%. It's like when you play a video game, do you ever get lost in the game? I do. Like, I'll get lost in it sometimes, especially when I've been playing for 40 hours straight and I got to beat the boss. And it's like, fuck this guy. To me, that's reality in that moment. And I would say I'm fully an NPC when I'm playing that way. But when I am fully vested, in my higher conscious, we'll say, when I'm actually, aligned with my true nature, or if I'm in a proper, let's be careful when we say transcendent state, because that's actually the normal state. This is the irregular state, this waking life. When I'm in my true state, I don't have this problem. I don't wonder about that, because to me it's all an act, all of it. The room, you, everything's an act, and I'm doing all of it. And so it's all real, but it's all an act. So
I think it's exactly that the whatever percent, whatever, is knowing that it's an act. The knowledge is what defines you as going, I understand. And the percent you understand is the real percent, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
So I feel like I looped all the way back around with this because in my own head, I was comparing it to a stage performance of being able to separate, like, I am but an actor on the stage, and all of this is just dressing to make everybody believe and, you know, have the illusion for but a moment. And I kind of came around of it. And no, I like being able to lose myself in that and just play the game for a while.
There's nothing wrong with it. That's a common misconception in many religions, is that we're supposed to transcend this and never look back and hate it. I think the Buddha said something along the lines of, when you realize what's really going on, you don't want to leave this world. You want to reincarnate 5,000 more times for fun, right? You don't leave it because you hate it. You don't, if you despise it, you still haven't transcended it. If you have to recognize that even the worst day of your life is absolute adventurous bliss, no matter what the fuck you're going through, that's amazing. And because of compassion, it's our job to work through that, of course, you know, and it's weird because as a black magician, people go, you have compassion? Of course I do. It's just that I'm a little bit more, look, I'm not love and light about it. I'm going to give it to people who I resonate with. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So, you know. What's up, Behemoth X, brother? What's going on, man? He says he's an actor. This is a shitty movie. What's up, man?
I don't know. This movie's a little bit better for all you guys being in it.
Yeah, I would agree. You know,
it's still on the room quality, but you know, there's some interesting characters in here. Hi, doggy.
I like that name. Zap Dubious knows nothing. I love that. Zap Dubious. I like that. Why do I like that?
Magic 4. If you don't like your movie, make it better.
Magic is actually in my playbook. Magic is not about changing things. It's about aligning. It's about recognizing your direct involvement with what happens in a prescient manner. So you don't do the ritual to change things. You do the ritual because you know things are going to change, and that is it's a shift of perspective that causes synchronicities and miracles to become apparent, and the littlest things can appear like miracles at that point.
That's the same thought point with the ego. You know what choice you're going to make already, type thing, right?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, to go with a completely materialistic perspective, if I get a neurologist in here, a really good one, they'll know that all they got to do is hook you up to a machine for a couple minutes, give you a couple baseline questions, and then they can ask you any left or right question, yes or no binary, and they can tell you, like, up to 7 seconds before you actually make the choice consciously, they can tell you what you're going to decide. Like that's how silly we are for thinking that our analytical left brain has anything to do with making the decision. The only thing the left brain has to do with anything is, if anything, it is a last moment, like, override. Like it's like you're on autopilot, but your analytical left brain can override that and say, you know what, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't do this because it'll use rationality to question. And the left brain is where the ego, that's where the throne of ego is in the mind anyway. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. So we got some new people in here, Fleshy. Who we got? Who we got here?
I see Ajna, Sin, Behemoth X. A little while ago, I saw Illuminastic. Jesus.
What's up? He's got a decent channel. I've been watching him a little bit. Yeah, he's a cool guy. He's actually down in, I forget where he is, but somewhere in, I forget, it was South or Central America doing some stuff. So he's cool. Oh, Jay Sauber, we got a $4.99. Thank you, Jay Sauber. Appreciate you, brother.
Oh, and Zap Dubious knows nothing.
I love that name. There's something about that name, Zap Dubious. I don't know what the fuck it is. It sounds like they should be like, I don't know, like an underground rapper or something. I don't know. It's like a fucking cool name. I like it. Zap Dubious.
Yeah, it sounds like a rapper from a satirical movie. I mean that in the best way possible.
Yeah, we got to get Behemoth X on here at some point.
So I don't think this is the end of the conversation. I'm sure we're going to loop back around to it. But to give ourselves a little bit of a respite from it for now, I have a question from Wyatt, who asked this at the beginning of the stream.
Was this his emergency question?
It is, in fact.
Is it still an emergency, though? It's been like an hour.
We'll see. So Wyatt Coverdale writes, Thorne, I need to ask you a favor. You don't have to do it, but it'd be an honor if you made a video to try and convince my parents to get me out of high school early and just get a GED. You don't have to do much. Just stick to what you usually say. Why it's too smart for high school. He astonishes us for his age. It's probably a lot for ask for, but if you did this for me, I'd literally cry with joy.
No, I'm gonna say suffer, dude. I'm gonna say suffer, dude. You know why? Look, homeschooling is probably the best for your education, for sure.
It's the best for your book education.
Yeah,
but there's a education of, you know, hard knocks or whatever, you know, generational divide you want to consider it. Just, you know, on some level, I really think you got to embrace the suck.
Yeah.
There's some lessons that come with public school that you can't learn anywhere else.
I mean, you got to learn how to get your nose bloody, dude. I mean, that's where I learned how to harden my knuckles, if you know what I mean. And look, they don't let you do that anymore, unfortunately. But that's kind of, look, the real world is not a GED. The real world is what you find out after you get a GED, and you think that's enough. That's the real world, and you won't actually be happy with it. I'm not saying that you have to stay. I would say if I didn't do this to my son, so I don't want to be a hypocrite, but if I had the resources to do it right, they would go to public school, and they would also get tutored at home by some really strict asshole that teaches them not what to think, but how to think, so that they can actually deprogram the bullshit they go through in school, so they can see both sides of the bullshit. But I would hate to do that to a kid. I mean, you know, at some level, I just want a kid to be a kid. So, yeah. Illuminostic says, I'm pretty sure DH isn't a black magician except an aesthetic, unless he has a very different idea of really. Why don't you tell us what your definition of black magician is, and then we will see if I fit your definition. Black magician definitely can have different understandings. I am absolutely sinister, but there's also, are we talking about the Western understanding of left hand? Or are we talking about the Sanskrit version understanding, the Vedic, the Hindu version of it? Are we talking, what do we mean?
Villain he was expecting.
I'm not, look, most people have a misunderstanding of left hand and black magic as if evil is the point. No, it's liberation. It's being capable of anything, understanding that order for the spider is chaos for the fly, and choosing to be either one at any moment, because sometimes you got to be the spider, sometimes you got to shoot the rabid dog, sometimes you have to do what others would call evil, not for the sake of even the greater good, but for the sake of following your utmost divine will. You know, God will have a mountain fall on an innocent village just as well as God will, you know, send the rains to feed them. So, you know, God doesn't choose good or evil. God does. And good and evil is a reaction that we see to that. So that's the kind of black magician. Maybe I'm not a black magician. Maybe I'm a nothing magician. I don't really care. You notice I don't call myself, how often do I call myself a black magician, guys? Let's be honest. So maybe he's right. Maybe it is just an aesthetic choice for me. I don't know.
Alex has inspired a thought in me into,
yes.
You know
me with my ADH brain. I got to talk over you. Just talk. To be
the Disney villain that the people expect of you, we all need to break out into a musical number with, you know, orchestration and choreography.
I could almost do that. Like, because you can ask my wife. I have this really bad habit. I will just start singing about dumb shit. Like, I really will. I could do it. Yeah. The hills are alive with the sound of flatulence. Yeah, I could do it.
I was going around doing Legally Blonde today. Like, I'm ready. I'm pre-prepared.
The problem is I'm not much of a dancer. I'm more of like that. Like, I'd have to do like Shakespearean posturing while I'm saying, like.
How very Captain Kirk of you.
No, hold on. Let me get the pose. I can't hear you over the sound of how awesome I am. Mr.
Shit.
Sulu. Engage. Oh wait, that's a little too much of Picard.
Yeah, you're well, I was going to say you're losing your audience, but really you found your audience. You just lost the others who are on the video call right now.
That's right.
Before our time.
Well, you know, I don't sit in a chair. I like to drape myself over it like Captain Kirk does. I don't like to just sit. I like to drape. So. Oh,
that's the Riker maneuver right there.
True. Well, he really manspread though. But he also like lady crossed, didn't he? He did both. Or was that Picard who lady crossed?
That's wow. I can't believe you compared compared him to that. That's because
I don't remember.
That's because he fractured his spine, dude.
What? Who?
Riker.
No, what do you mean? Like the man spread or which one was
he did the things that he did because he broke his back at one point.
Oh,
like
that sucks.
Can I show off for a second? Completely materialistic and off topic.
Sure.
Yeah, fucking do
I like
it.
materialism sometimes. It's fun.
I got a tattoo.
Oh, sick.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude.
Did you get every one of your like spinal bones like tattooed there? Like, what is that? I can't see it. That is cool, actually.
It's a full spinal, like all the way down my back to my neck.
And what did they do? Like, did you try to get it matched up a little bit? Because that looks pretty close. Like, it looks like you got them all.
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure.
Does it go all the way to that bone that protrudes a little bit where your back meets your neck? Because I've heard that is the most painful fucking spot of the entire spine.
It goes like right there.
Oh, fuck, dude.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that.
Far down from my hairline.
Yeah, I like that.
Respect.
Yeah, that's pretty badass.
Felt like such a little bitch kid.
I don't know if I can get any more tattoos because I've recently realized I probably have psoriasis, and they don't like giving tattoos when you have psoriasis. It's like it only flared up this year.
You could find somebody.
I probably could, but they're gonna be like pizza, like pizza crust, not so good. It's not like really visible, like it's really not, but it's like I feel it, and like every once in a while I'll get like dry skin.
So was that your first tattoo, Alex?
That's the first one I've got done in a shop. I've got 4 others that I gave myself.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I inadvertently gave myself a few
level.
with pencils. I got stabbed with pencils in school a bunch of times, so I got little dots all over.
I got the smallest is that big, and the biggest is a world tree about that big that says the crows are always watching.
Behemoth X says, how many sittings, Alex?
1.
Okay,
4
yeah,
hours.
that's impressive, actually. Yeah, that's impressive. Show it again. Is there a lot of color, or is it mostly just shading?
It's black and white.
Yeah, I'm wondering how dense it is. Looks like it's some shading on there. Yeah, okay.
You know, it looks dense enough that over the fucking spine, Jesus Christ, like
yeah, especially over the bones. Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it's just my squeamishness for needles. I have 1 tattoo over my ribs, and going into it, I thought the outlining is going to be the worst part. And then I rapidly realized, no, the shading is the fucking worst.
No matter I got all solid tattoos, and they were like, "You sure you don't want shading? It hurts less than doing solid." I'm like, "I don't care about how much it hurts. What the fuck do I?"
Oh, you know what I'm saying? Shading, coloring, any of that.
Yeah,
when they're going over with
hurts,
the broad brush over and over and over again.
Although to be honest, some of the line work hurt more than when the chick did the solid. It really did. There was something about some of the line work. It just felt like it's like she like made the needle go deeper or something, and it was just like, oh, like now she's twisting it in there. It was like really. Mine took like an hour, I guess. I really should get something better done. It's just, tattoos for me, like I've got to go to someone who will give me. I want like tatoas, you know what I mean? Like I want like real, like spiritually, energized tattoos. I want to go somewhere where they use that stick and they use their foot and like tap it into you. That's what I want to get. But that's just me.
That's gonna take so fucking long.
Fuck, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. Yeah, fucking charge that shit. Put magic in it. Do
that
it.
Seems like the worst. You will. That seems like the worst part about a stick and poke is like the idea of the pain I can work through, but with an actual gun, you can be in and out in an hour, depending on the size, like an hour at minimum most of the time. Stick and poke, like if you get out in an hour, that's like the tiniest fucking little tattoo.
Mm-hmm. Well, even if it's done with modern techniques, I still want someone who, like, I don't know, Alex, you want to know like a really probably won't be that lucrative because there's probably not much of a demand. But if you were to become a tattoo artist, for example, if you were to become a tattoo artist and offer ritual tattooing where you're charging those tattoos with something, I might even be a customer. So get into it, and I'd love to see it. That'd be pretty badass.
I really, really like that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I've thought about talking about it, but I'm not a tattooist, so I'll take a finder's fee. Give me a discount on my first tattoo from you, and that's all I'll ask. You can have the idea.
Yeah, I do wonder about that because besides the artwork, and I don't take what I'm about to say as gospel. I admit ignorance, and I don't know anything about this, but I think certain people can infuse the ink with like cremated ashes and shit like that for your tattoo to make it that much more.
I think with the stick and poke method, like you're describing, you go to like the right country where they don't have the laws we have, you know, for sure. But I don't know about in America. I don't know.
Oh no, you could fucking stay here. Just
stick and poke in America. You go to a middle school. Like,
yeah, that's where somebody starts fucking blowing
go to prison.
out
Everybody else gets their cool tattoos.
Pen ink into a fucking bottle cap and shit.
Well, that's why I said my first tattoos are literally pencil dots. I got one right here. I got a pencil dot. I don't know if you can see it. Probably not.
So
that's when you know you're getting a badass tattoo is when they go.
What is it? Someone said, "Hey, Fleshy." Somebody noticed. John Stone said, "What? Thorne on the bottom? That's new." Yeah, I'm doing the bottom thing this time because that was the only way to fit everybody.
What were you trying to say, Alex?
Sorry.
One of the first tattoos I did, it was there's no stopping me. It was a cut, sterilized sewing needle jabbed into the end of a pencil in India ink, which is an art ink you can get in almost any art store that's skin safe.
So I will like to interject because I do care about my channel and YouTube's getting crazier lately. We are not advocating any of this stuff. In fact, don't do anything that we're talking about. This is all for entertainment value. Don't do nothing. Don't sacrifice anything. Don't do magic. In fact, just get off the internet completely. It sucks.
Don't be a free thinker. Don't think for yourself.
Don't think
just fucking
Right.
stick with the safe route. Stick with what they've prescribed for you. All of this is dangerous and can lead to serious bodily harm, and we do not advocate it whatsoever.
No. In fact, if you flip over the other side, you'll see an insert with all of the possible side effects, which include fisting hippos. Thank you, Astarte Astaroth, for the fisting hippo, the weekly, our favorite. Oh man!
If you're doing that maneuver in the middle of that action, then
tactical fisting hippo has arrived, says CM Helnikainen. Thank you. So, all right, you know what? I don't know if you had more questions or conversation starters, Alex, but if not, maybe we should open the chat to the audience a little bit and see if anybody wants to present a question, comment, or concern to any of us, any three of us, or all of us at once. And we'll give you guys a few minutes to do so, unless Fleshy's got some other questions.
I'd say I have, sorry. I have
I'll sneak in real quick. If you've got questions, go ahead and hit us with it. Do all caps or tag Yepsen, YEPSEN. And in the meantime, we're going to chat while we wait for some of those to flood in. So sorry, Alex, go ahead.
No, it's good. The biggest form of magic practice that I do every day, other than the manifestation, that type of tarot. What tarot card would you two say you most self-identify with?
Ooh, shit on
that one right there, baby.
The Fool? Yeah.
Ooh. Fuck yeah. I
don't know, man. That's a question I never really considered.
Really?
Yeah, no, I never really considered that.
Okay, so let me reframe Alex's question a little bit. What card do you just resonate with? Like not see yourself in, but what card?
What's your card?
Yeah.
What's my card?
What card always puts a smile on your face every time it comes up? What card do you love talking about? What card do you think most people misunderstand and you have a unique insight to?
Like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to think about that. To really think about it.
You know, I volunteer this for you, the Tower.
Nah, I wouldn't say the Tower.
The Hierophant?
Yeah. No. I was gonna say the Star, maybe. Maybe the Star. Maybe.
Oh no, okay, hold on. I can see it in my head, but I don't remember what.
What's it look like?
I mean, the Star depends upon who's doing the tarot card. It can either represent like that Lucifer or the it's the guiding light, it's the star, it gives you direction. If you get the Star, it means you're being guided. It means that you're on sort of, hope is another good word for the Star card. It's later in the deck. Yeah, later in the major.
Ooh, here we go. I volunteer for you, Thorne. The Seven of Swords, specifically from the Rider-Waite Tarot.
Would you mind telling me why?
Simply because it's a motherfucker just collecting all the swords and just later, bitches. These are mine now.
So are you just? Is that because of the vampire quality that I have? Is that what you're? Because that's kind of like the vampire card, by the way.
I'm gonna be honest. It's mostly for that meme that I know we both just love so much. Of just me walking away with a shit ton of swords. Me waking up the next day wondering why I bought all these swords.
That is a good meme. Oh man, there's times I feel like, King of Cups. There's times I feel, yeah, no, I don't really think of it that way. Part of it is that there's a part of me that wants to say a card and be like, ooh, that's such a cool card, I want to be that one. Yeah, no. In all sincerity, I don't know. Maybe that means I am the fool. I don't know.
I feel like you're a little cynical for a fool.
True. Yeah, that's true. Possibly.
Sorry, flashy.
Well, I saw people saying Hierophant, like you said, Hierophant. I saw people saying Emperor. Yeah,
I feel like that's the projection that people put upon your mask.
What I can also say is that if you really want to have fun, you can line that up almost with if we go with my tropical astrological reading, I have I do have Pluto in my first house, which means I can definitely seem Scorpio-ish, but not be. I definitely have that. But I have Libra, that is what I'm becoming. I have Virgo, which is what I sometimes appear to people to be. But I have very obviously Aries because that's my sun sign. I have Cancer as my moon, so I'm super sensitive, but I don't show it because I got that Aries quality. It's fuck you. But I don't know, dude. That's what I'm saying. I don't really think of it that way. I guess if someone were to give me a reading and be like, "Oh, pick out your card that represents you," I'd be like, "No, you do it."
So we have some questions rolling in, so I'm going to get to them in a second. But out of curiosity, have you guys ever had any weird experiences with the cards? Because this isn't so uncommon, but I've had some literally jump out, not as in oh, that keeps appearing and appearing, but literally physically jump out of the deck while my hands were off of it and shit like that. Have you ever had any fucking weird shit?
It's so much. Cards that just pop out anytime that cut the deck and look at it, and it's exactly the card you were thinking. It's the one completely applicable to the situation. There was a moment doing magic with a witch on hallucinogenics, shuffling the deck back and forth, card tricks, just pulling one out, and it's completely applicable. It's perfect, exactly what you'd use to describe the situation all the fucking time. I love it.
What about you, DH?
I mean, when shuffling, I've had cards pop out. I think everybody gets that from time to time. I've had, although I generally don't use reverse cards for most of my decks. There's a few I will, but most of the time I don't. But I've had reversals happen, just one card get reversed for some weird reason. Shouldn't happen. I'm not saying it can't, but it shouldn't. I've had, despite even intentionally shuffling, getting the same 3 cards in a row, despite intentionally separating them and putting them in different spots in the deck because they were doing that, and having them pop up 1 or 2 more times. That was a freaky night. I've had, more often than not, the freaky part is when I know what it's going to be. That's when it's really freaky. When I'm doing the reading and I go, I bet you the next card's going to be this, and it is. And I've never been good at counting cards or faking cards. I'm not a card shark, so I don't know. There's no way that I could fake that. So when that happens, the hair goes on my neck, stands up, and I go, oh, we're on to something. Come on, gang, I've got a clue. We got to follow this. And that's when I really run with it. But yeah, I mean, I guess I have a very high litmus test for what I consider weird with things like that. You know, like we had that one conversation where it's like when you do this stuff all the time, like stuff moving around your house is like expected. Like it's not weird anymore.
That's the funny part is that, you know, most people want to hear those spooky stories. And when you do this often enough, like the spooky shit is just kind of your everyday, where the stuff that would make everybody else go, the power of Christ is just, that's a fucking Tuesday, dude.
And it's also, I tend to resist the urge to go superstitious on my supernatural experiences. I feel like I find it much more exciting when I've tried to debunk the shit out of it and I can't, rather than just accepting it. It sort of like goes back to like, you know, the Bible isn't all wrong. One of the things it says is test the spirits. And I think that means we should be skeptical, but open, you know, to our experiences. If I'm doing a ritual and something falls off the shelf, in the moment, I accept it as a sign. But after the ritual, I'm going to go check it out. You know, like if I ask a question of spirits, give me a sign that you're here, and shit falls down, I'm accepting that. That is a sign we are alive. But then when it's over, I'm going to examine and see why that happened. I'm going to be... Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
I'm not sure if this qualifies as weird. Do you know what the unicursal hexagram is in the Crowley deck?
Yeah. Yep.
In
fact, I love the unicursive hexagram is one of my. I haven't done it in a while, so I forget it. But it's I
don't have a Crowley deck. Dad has the deck he uses mostly is the Crowley deck. He reads for me.
Crowley deck is deep, dude. That one's hard. If you I love the Crowley
hexagram shows up less than any other card at any other, like it never shows.
Well, are you talking about the Thoth deck or I think it's the Thoth deck, right?
Yeah, Thoth.
Okay, yeah.
That's what comes to mind when it's spooky, is that like you can go through shuffle read for hours and not see it.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's not forget a couple of details. One, I mean, I can also tell you that in the 2 or 3 years that I've gotten back into tarot reading, there's cards I've never gotten in that time. Like, it's really weird. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like that tells me something too. But also, you know, what is there? Typical tarot, what is it, 74 or whatever? And the Thoth deck is, I forget, 78, something like, I forget what the numbers are. Because I don't ever care about the numbers. But just a regular set of playing cards, 52 factorial, means that there are so many different combinations that you could shuffle that till the end of the universe times a couple of extra zeros worth and still not have the same setup repeat if you only got one each time. In other words, if it was different every time you shuffled the deck. So the odds of getting the same one twice in a row, and I mean the whole deck arranged the same way, are pretty ridiculous. The fact that you can get readings repeat at all is ridiculous. 52 factorial is huge. What about 72, 74, 76, 78 factorial? That's orders of magnitude even worse. So the idea that you could get, for example, the same reading twice in a row, that is pretty significant. Like in terms of odds, it can happen, of course, but it's pretty significant that would happen. So to put that another way, when you're looking for one card in specific, it is weird that you would get it multiple times, because realistically you should probably get something else. So it is a little bit weird when it does come up more than once. But like you said, when you see that card all the time, you know, what is it telling you? What is that happens to me too. I'll get different cards come up for me a lot. I'll get like the Queen of Swords comes up a lot in readings, mostly for other people, but it comes up a lot. It's like that card seems to pop up a lot, you know, for whatever reason. And it's interesting, you know, it makes me wonder, like, well, are people who are having Queen of Swords type of people in their lives just flocking to me for some reason? Like, why is this coming up so much? So that's an interesting thing, especially if what you're saying, like it comes up like that.
So I did have a question roll in here.
Yay!
From Lil Sewell. How do I get rid of my ex's succubus that's attached to me and is punishing me? And the reason I picked this out in particular is how they ended. Not in a good way.
Ooh, there's a couple of possibilities here. It depends on which, we'll say, I don't want to say pantheon, but that could be too, which dogma you ascribe it to. But I'll let you guys answer that first.
On the topic of dogma, I think this person was responding to this statement. Mr. Zombie says, ask its controlling spirit to recall it, or get a bigger spirit to scare it off.
Yep, that's exactly one of the directions I was going to go. But I'll let you guys talk about it first if you want.
My immediate impulse is Florida water, the Vodun Florida water. That's like growing up. If you're scared there's a monster under the bed, sprinkle some Florida water and it's fine. If you're seeing actual demons, any actual harm, anything, sprinkle some Florida water. It'll be fine. So that's instinct.
Educate me, because I've heard Florida water, but I don't know what it is. It sounds to me like fucking a Breaking Bad water supply.
So if you go to bulb.co/spider and the green butterfly, you'll it's Vodun. You use it to make a Vodun or a voodoo altar. It scientifically, it's water with a little bit of extract if you want some, and some color dye to make it yellow for the sun. Magically, I think it's a month to make of processes to get a voodoo energies in it, to get your energy in it, to get the sun's energy in it, and you can use it to banish pretty much everything. It's a cleanser. It's a cleanser in about the purest form I found it.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know anything about it. But yeah, that's a good answer. I wouldn't know. It sounds right, so I'm gonna go with it. Shadow work would be a big one to do, because generally curses like that, I'm going to call this a curse because of your situation. Curses like that need fertile soil to land. So you need and I hope Alex isn't going to die here, because I think she suddenly started having issues.
Oh, I'm spilling shit.
Oh no. Hopefully you're all right.
Yeah.
Let us know if you need us to pause. We'll okay, you're good.
I'm used to this. It's
I fucking dropped my hard drive earlier, so if any of you can beat that on stream, then yeah.
Ooh, I didn't see that part. Sorry, bro.
That was me going off camera and then yelling "fuck."
Oh, I didn't see that. I did not see it. So shadow work, if you've got fertile soil for that kind of a thing to land on, succubi and incubi can be benevolent, or they can be malevolent. You can get a succubus incubus familiar. You can use them for fun. You can inflict them as curses. But they are very vampiric in the sense that they feed upon, when I say sexual energy, I don't just mean like you're sticking your dick in something or getting fucked or whatever. They feed off of that lusty energy, especially, what did we say that one time? How do we put it? Generally, when someone is having an issue with a succubus, it's not that the succubus is abusing them or that they're not getting enough sex or whatever. It's that they have a hang up about that issue already, and that's why it's influencing them.
You're kind of pointing towards change your perspective, because like it's hard for the bully to beat you up if you scream harder, daddy.
One way to put it, yes. Or you fight back or whatever. Yes,
you could always just like press the return to sender button.
You could, but I don't like to
switcheroo.
You definitely could, but I'm not of the mind of making it easier on people. Maybe that's why Fleshy wants to call me the Tower. I'm not of the mind of making it easier for people. I don't like robbing people of experiences for growth. You could come to me and I could do a ritual and maybe it would stop, maybe it wouldn't, because here's the issue. We tend to invite in our own curses. Curses are a way to rebalance the imbalanced energies. So if someone, it's really hard to curse a saint, because a saint is just like, what's going to happen? Maybe their attic leaks or something. It's going to be something that they're neglecting or that they've got a problem on. Curses really work well on someone who's unstable, though, someone who's got problems, someone who's not integrated. That works really well on them. I'm not saying this to insult you, by the way, my friend. I'm not saying that, because we've all got things that we could be hit with if someone knew us well enough.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not trying to imply anything, maybe. But I would also suggest that if you wanted to work with a spirit to help you resolve this, Making a pact with Asmodee, Asmodeus, Ashmadeva, whatever word you want for that spirit would be really good, because he is absolutely like, top shelf when it comes to succubi and incubi, as is Lilith, but in this case, it sounds like you probably would want Asmodee, Asmodeva, Asmodeus more. He's definitely a jealous spirit, but the thing is, he might help you integrate whatever sexual thing is causing that incubus to, that succubus to be so attached to you. So it's sort of like, it's sort of like going to the boss who sent it to you and being like, why did you send this to me, in a way? But because these spirits don't take sides, you might be able to commune with this spirit and get some sort of relief. Some people would say, oh, go celibate or something crazy, or purify yourself. No. I like to, to do judo in the spirit world. I like to do, jujitsu or something. I don't like to meet hard with hard. I like to respond with hard to soft, and vice versa. I like to counter straight lines with circles, and circles with straight lines.
I'm just imagining you going Cobra Kai, just now stomp the groin.
Not Cobra Kai, but yeah, what's that show? I fucking love that show.
Yeah, you know what I meant.
Yeah, I know what you meant. Restop the groin. Restop the groin.
So, would you say Asmodeus, or would you say Asmodeus? Me and Dad had this conversation. We couldn't come to it.
Doesn't matter. It's all words, because the original name was Ashmadeva or Ashima, and Deva is the title. Ashma. So we're really talking.
I feel like Asmodeus is more fitting to our American tongue. Like, it just feels better in our lexicon, but Asmodeus feels so much more.
Well, it's Asmodeus. It's Asmodeus, and I forget what Asmo means, but it's Asmodeus. And it's
Rock me Asmodeus. Asmodeus.
Yeah. Well, Deus is divinity, God. Okay, it's Osmo. I don't know. You can look it up. It's sort of not my interest at the moment, but yeah. So that's one option that you could use. You could also, be crafty. You could even try to get the succubus to work for you instead of against you. Maybe the reason why you're suffering it is because maybe you are resisting something that would be actually fun if you just sort of leaned into it instead. Succubi are mercenary in a lot of ways. If you get a succubi involved, you can sometimes placate them just by having fun with them and getting into it, or you can bore them by literally just not giving into those things at all.
You wouldn't even have to lean into it so much as maybe just acknowledge and recognize. A lot of things show up when you're trying to repress them, and I'm not saying that's what it is, but that's a possibility for seeing any kind of, once again, curses or invasions. Acknowledge.
Yeah. And it's also, what power do you give them? I'm seeing your comment. You say, I tried purification and all this other stuff, and she went psycho and started fracturing bone, and one of the things that a curse does to you is you start blaming bad things on curses. So it tends to just sort of snowball, because you're giving it too much power just by saying that's why it happened. So it's kind of like, if I get cursed, and I get cursed quite a bit, believe it or not, if a curse lands, usually it's going to land in a very insignificant way. I get a leaky roof, we'll get a flat tire or something, and I will feel, I think that was a curse. But you know what I do? I laugh at that motherfucker. I go, yeah, try again, motherfucker. Try again. I'll do some protection magic, sure, but I don't take it too seriously. I laugh at it. There is an old saying, or I don't know if I made it up or an old saying, but, die laughing. You'll be in good company when you get on the other side. It's better to laugh at a curse than it is to take it seriously. It diminishes it so much to do so. Joy is the perfect answer to a curse. If you take it seriously and live in fear or live in anger or reactionary to it, it's going to hit you that much harder. Yeah, you may have some bad experiences for a while, but you know what? You're probably going to have bad experiences anyway. That's my point when I said earlier, I don't know if you were here for that, I don't see magic as a way to change reality. I see magic as a way to integrate with what your true will really is. And this thing happening to you is not actually happening to you. It's a thing that you are ultimately, because you are the divine. It is ultimately a thing you are doing. This means this succubus is not an enemy. It is actually your friend if you understand how to integrate it. So that's why I don't like giving people the easy solution. Sure, I could throw you something. I could say, here, I'll do a protection ritual. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. I could do this. I could do that. Or you could try this and that. You could put this sigil in your home. You could bind it. You could put it in a cauldron. You could disperse it. You could return it to sender. Nah, I want to see you lean into it. I want to see you lean into that fucker, because that's going to make you stronger. And that's the goal. That's going to liberate you. This is why I'm sort of a Luciferian, and this is why I'm these things, because I want you to integrate that and ride that. And look, sometimes I need that advice. There's times I'm like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? My taxes due. I don't feel like doing it. And then I got to remember, nah, you're doing this on purpose. Just ride it. Just ride it out. Just ride it out. You're always better for it. Right? So that's my advice. Maybe not everybody's favorite advice. People want to hear how they can have their problems taken away. I don't live that way. I wish I did. I wish I did. We lost Fleshy. So Alex, you've got to act in Fleshy's. Oh, you got a kitty.
I do have a cat. Yeah.
We were going to get a kitty recently, but we kind of held off again.
I love the familiar with it so much. So she in particular, there's a line between just like a pet and a familiar where they're there for the rituals. She will do everything in her power to get into the center of a sigil. Mm-hmm. And it's most sigils she'll try and get to. She's been full possessed a couple times. I've heard her speak human words. There's an appreciation that comes with it for sure.
Yeah, familiars are interesting things. I'm not of the clan that believes that your pet can be your familiar, but sometimes your familiar can possess your pet. And I distinguish them because to me that's a cat and it's its own being. But sometimes a familiar will inspire them, and sometimes will even possibly possess. It's like you look in their eyes and you're like, wait a minute, that's not my dog or cat. There's somebody else in there right now. Yeah. Just like it can happen with you. So, I'd resist it though, because there is like this it's almost like window dressing for people to be like, oh, that's my familiar. His name's Asmodeus the cat, and it's my familiar. It's like, all right. Sometimes, sure.
we joke about that, but I also feel like that's a necessary step for all of us to go through. So, if that's your thing, fucking embrace it and have fun with it, because it is fun. To a degree, but I think, there comes a point where it's missing something. But if people want to do it, I'm not hating on it. I'm not saying live in it. I'm just saying it's a stepping stone that most people go through. So while you're there, fucking have fun with it. Don't care what a bunch of, fucking internet
that's
say.
Fair. Yeah, no, I don't believe that there is no such thing as objective truth, but I do believe that the subjective is how you see it. And, I can't take away your experiences from you just because I say I don't agree with you. So if someone has an experience where my cat is my familiar, I would just say, ask the right questions, and you might understand that there's actually a deeper potential there. Something even more magnificent could be happening than you realize. So maybe your cat is a willing participant in the activity, and maybe you have two friends there, think of it that way. So I know I love my pets a lot. So
it's the familiarity and the comfort of a creature that can get actively possessed by the same demons, so you can converse with not only the creature itself, but the demons through the creature simultaneously. Mm-hmm. And that's what defines the connection. That sounds like an occultist's way to say I love you to a pet. I love her so much.
So
cats are also special when it comes to, different pets have different sensibilities when it comes to spiritual things. Dogs tend to keep away spooky things. Like dogs will chase away ghosts and things. Sometimes they can't. Sometimes they'll just react to them and be like watchdog. But like my dog, we had a ghost in the house till we got a dog. As soon as we got a dog, the ghost went away. We don't know why. we thought maybe something about the dog placated it. But I also have noticed that something about dogs, at least for some people, gives people, it sort of cleanses the energy, we'll say, and turns it into a more balanced environment. Now, a cat will alert you to spiritual things. You know, a dog will protect you and bark, but a cat will play with it, will run away from it, will be attracted to it. Like, they're a little bit more scout oriented when it comes to that stuff. And like you said, you'll be doing a ritual. Oh, go ahead. I couldn't hear you talking, Alex.
Notice in the middle of nowhere, it's not true for all dogs. Vast majority of dogs will go away whenever there's a ritual in practice. Specifically, whenever there's a ritual in practice, birds will stop tweeting, coyotes will go silent, animals will, specifically dogs, will run away, cats will go towards it. Yeah,
I mostly agree with that. And especially with shadow people, there's definitely a difference in reaction from cats and dogs. Cats will, it's the opposite. Shadow people, they may be attracted to them at first, like, what the fuck is that? They'll stare, whatever. Dogs will stare at shadow people. They'll just be like, and they want you to see what they see. A cat is like, fuck you, and bolt when a shadow person's around. And some cats and shadow people don't mix too well. So it's kind of like the opposite, interestingly enough. But I know what you mean. I mean, I'm not saying it's like clockwork, but I've definitely seen that stuff, especially with cats, because cats, something about paper attracts a cat. I don't know if you ever noticed, but like if you leave like a paper on a table and there, or something, they will ignore the cushion that's comfy and nice to sit on that piece of paper. I don't know what it is. I've looked it up. I don't think anybody knows. Paper
with like circles or boxes or rugs.
Any
small area that's like a thing, a little gated off by some kind of
border.
It
has to do with their because they're not just predators, they're prey, and they like to be in like little enclosed spaces because it makes them feel safe. So maybe they think that's like a box. I don't know, but I noticed that they like paper and keyboards. Paper and keyboards are very attractive to cats. So they like things that you're attracted to too. Like if you spend a lot of time looking at stuff, they want to look at it too.
Oh God, I'm such a fucking nerd. So if you look at a cat psychology, cats will try and do things with you.
Yes.
They want to do what you're doing because that's what you're doing. So it's about the object that's getting your attention. If you're writing, they want to be where you're writing. That's where your attention is. If you're typing, they want to be on your fucking keyboard. Because they just want to do things with you.
If they want your attention, they know how to get it they just replace the thing. They're like, well, that's, I think, why, a lot of women, are well served by acting like a cat. Honey, I want your attention. I know I'm busy. Yeah, and just appear in front of me. That's what you need to do sometimes.
And dudes, the cat ears definitely hold a certain appeal.
Neko boys to the rescue of Fresh's dreams.
Dresses.
I mean, I prefer the Neko girls myself, but I understand the lore. I do. Yeah.
So this is me like doing a really out of left segue to something that we talked about earlier, but you hear a lot about people having, familiars that are dogs or cats or a bird and like really common animals for us to have. Is there something to, just magic finding the path of least resistance? These are animals.
I'm going to interrupt you. Your microphone is cutting you out a bunch, like it's like noise cancellation or something.
Yeah, you're kind of spotty.
Let me move in a little bit closer. Is there something about magic taking the path of least resistance on, these are the pets most common for us to have, or is there really something about, people putting familiars into what is there?
I think it's less path of least resistance and more that's what's readily available for the vast majority of people. Like anyone, Zerafina, Scotland, pretty open, pretty wildlife, pretty green. She's got, I wouldn't say familiars, but she's got crows. That she's really, really good with.
I love crows. Crows are like, if I had a spirit animal, that'd be a crow for sure. Crow or a raven for sure.
But most modern people don't have like animals really around other than house pets that you'd find. So I think that
each biome has its own animal kingdom, right? If you're in the city, it's going to be rats, pigeons, maybe sometimes falcons and hawks and stuff. And yeah, sometimes crows. But you're going to have city animals that you can relate to, even coyotes and stuff, but usually wild dogs are in cities and stuff. Cats, you know, alligators in the sewers if you live in the right area. But if you live in a suburb, you're going to have a different set of
coyotes and cows.
Yeah, and if you live in the countryside, it's going to be even different. So we tend to not think of like city animals as cool, but my main familiar takes the form most commonly of a rat, sometimes as something else, but usually as a rat with a crow skull, either as a head or as a helmet on its head. That's usually the form it takes. And it's usually small, but sometimes it'll get like RAOS and get really big. But most of the time it's small. And
I appreciate that reference.
Yes, I hope you would. But what I like about it is to think of it, oh, he's got a rat familiar. It doesn't sound that badass. Yeah, but that's part of its allure, is that it's a fetch, right? It's meant to do your light work, for one thing. It's meant to be an intermediary for you and the spirit world, especially if you're having troubles. So for example, let's say you're in a situation where I just can't concentrate, I can't get this done, but I know I can contact my familiar, and even if I can't sense it, my familiar is obligated to do what I want. So if I say, familiar, go get this spirit for me because I'm having trouble making connection, I have a much higher chance, because then the familiar will go and do that light work for me. Oh. But a familiar isn't about what it looks like. That's just like a dream, in the sense that a dream is symbolic. So what do rats symbolize? And why does he have a crow skull for a head? Like what the fuck is that about? So what do rats symbolize? Well, if you look up rats in various different cultures, rats are kind of badass actually in what they can. They're very highly intelligent. They're problem solvers. I
see a lot less of the giving command to a familiar, and more of the coexisting with them in some kind of magical sense.
It all depends on, like, if you read the books, the stuff I've written about familiars, there are different flavors of familiar for different people. Some of them require a firm hand, abuse even. They feed off of that. Some require that you scold them and punish them as a reward even. Like they're masochists, basically. They're bottoms, okay, if that makes you happy. Some of them are more cooperative, and they want to be treated in a more noble way. I have a second familiar, which is more of that type. It wants to be treated as equal, may not be the right word, but not a slave either. My primary familiar doesn't want to be a slave, but it is certainly seen as a servant, and it's something that I have to respect. But it's definitely a servant. Like, I can tell it what to do.
It's
in an authority way.
I'm gonna propose an idea for you just to think about mostly. I would argue that people that have familiars as pets is much like someone that keeps a pet dragon. A dragon is a pet because a dragon wants to be a pet. The dragon isn't actually under a position of power, and they wouldn't be there if they didn't want to be. But a pet dragon would have to be comfortable being a pet dragon. They would want to. I would say that that's what a familiar would do in order to be a pet.
There's also the familiars being punished as another angle too. You know, what if that familiar is for whatever reason, it's you could say it's self-imposed punishment perhaps, but it is an egregore that is being punished, if you will. And part of its punishment is enslavement for a while. You know, there is that. You know, what if the egregore is a fragment of a being, a person, whatever, that, you know, was lost, and the only way to stay alive as an egregore is to become a servant. But what if in life maybe they were a slave master, and so their justice is to be enslaved to someone someday? You know, I mean, we're talking highly superstitious stuff, but let's play with that idea. Look, I would argue that there's no limit to what. Look, a familiar is a nebulous term too. People would call Asmodeus a familiar in different traditions. People would call Zeus a familiar in a different tradition. So what makes a familiar versus a god versus a this and a that? It's really the kind of relationship you have with it. And so much of this is based on your perception of it, that rather than try to tell you what it is, I like to tell people a selection of rational categories and see what people choose and see what they find, see what the spirits give to them, or what they select out of the spirit world, or what they create, because you can create your familiar as well. So, you know, generally, though, I like to see familiars as a liaison with another spirit that may not always be at your beck and call. So you may have a spirit that you like to work with, but maybe you don't want to, maybe they're busy, like you don't want to bother the main spirit, but you want to have a representative of that spirit on hand. Well, then you might want to respect that spirit, but maybe it was given to you to be punished. I mean, like I said, read the chapter and Become the Maelstrom on familiars. You might find it interesting.
It's like how DH took me under his wing to handle his bitch work. Like, okay, well, you really want to get into this community, you're going to have to deal with the bullshit.
That's not what happened, though. More, to be fair, you did more of the pet dragon thing. You're like, can I do this for you? And I'm like, well, I got to pay. It's like, no, you don't. So you were more like the pet dragon that Alex was talking about, to be fair. I'm not sure who would be the
also, props for that. I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you're definitely right, Alex. There are some that are definitely pet dragons in your analogy. Absolutely. Like, I think it's a wide open spectrum. Like, I think it's like, you know, let's come up with a rainbow flag for familiars, because it's like that. I mean, there's a spectrum of stuff, and they can be multiple things. And the way I like to understand it is, in my experiences with them, they will begin as an archetypal egregoric presence. You sense them, you sense what they're roughly about, and then you can sort of co-create the form that they take and the personality that they have, and the relationship you have with them. You know, it really depends, I suppose, on how you acquire them. If it's given to you by somebody else or a spirit or whatever, you know, you buy those anchored necklaces or whatever the fuck. That's one thing. If you go into a relationship with a spirit and acquire one by asking, you know, you ask a spirit to give you one, it pays to be receptive and let the inspiration come to you, so long as it's clearly from that spirit. And again, depends on how superstitious you want to get with it, how much you want to see it as a part of yourself being expressed, and how much you want to see it as a dualistic spirit that is there telling you what it's telling you. There's so many layers to it. Not all of them are right, not all of them are wrong, but everyone's on a journey somewhere, and they've got to figure it out for themselves on some level. So let's see, what is Sam tagged me there? What's he saying? Yeah, exactly. I once told someone there is no reason you can't have Prince Visago as your familiar if that's the type of relationship you two are wanting to have. Yeah, it really, like I said, look in the literature, you'll see various spirits that we would call major spirits are considered familiars for some reason. So the term is nebulous. It's like meditation.
Interestingly with him too, because so I posed a question to chat of like, do you work with familiars? Like, what form does your familiar take? And CM was actually the only one who responded. And he said that ironically, despite the conversation that we had earlier, his familiar takes the form of a succubi. Mm-hmm. And so I know CM, and it's interesting because I would not categorize that spirit as a familiar in its relation to him, but obviously he does. So.
I think part of it is also, like I hinted at a moment ago, is the word familiar is as nebulous as meditation. What do we mean when we say meditation? There's so many different interpretations of what meditation means. Meditation is meaningless. It might as well mean nothing. It might as well just mean, you know, gobbledygook, because it really, are we talking transcendental meditation? And what exactly do we mean by meditation when we say meditation, whether it's transcendental or otherwise? Are we talking about the technique, the goal, the whatever? So really, meditation is whatever you want it to be that helps you achieve a state of mind. Well, familiar is whatever you want it to be that helps you interface with the spirit world. And it could be a major deity, it could be a minor little spooky, whatever the fuck you want it to be, honestly. And that's why familiars are fun. And I consider familiars like somewhere, it's not as high level as maybe your HGA would be if you're doing that, or I call it the Watcher. But it's definitely not like day one stuff. You should already have a little bit of success and skill and understanding. You know, that's like year 2 or 3 at Hogwarts. It's not 101.
Yeah, it shouldn't be, you know, the very first thing that you set out to do. That's your intermediate level.
Though sometimes it'll just happen to you early on. So to be fair, there's even an exception to that rule. It's just to do it intentionally is probably not not year
but
one.
I feel like that's the difference of it happens rather than you set out to do.
Correct. Yeah. And if it's happening, it's probably because you're more advanced than you realize. It's probably because the spirit world's ready to have that relationship with you, and it's a valid way to do it. But yeah, I'd put it closer to the intermediate, level personally. Only for the simple fact that if you're a beginner, you're probably not really going to be able to do the things that familiars kind of require, and familiars require attention. So familiar in a lot of cases is like any other thought form. It's an egregoric entity. It requires your attention and your ability. Now you can you forget it for a while. You can resurrect it, so to speak. You can bring it back potentially. Sometimes you can't though. But a good familiar requires regular care, feeding, and attention. And if you're not paying attention to it, you better keep up with whatever your pact is with it. If you've got a pact to feed it every month on the full moon, you miss a day because you got lost in traffic, whatever. But you keep to that pact as tight as you possibly can. And don't forget, I've noticed when I've forgotten, weird shit happens. If I miss a day or two, holy shit, weird shit will happen in my house, especially with my main familiar, the one that takes the form of a rat. Shit goes missing, arguments happen around the house. I'll feel like I'm being stabbed in the fucking leg at night with fucking cramps and shit. Just like weird shit starts to happen. So I make sure I feed it. I make sure I give it its blood offering. If you need a
recommendation for don't do what we're saying, who really wants that responsibility? That sounds fucked.
It's like a spiritual Tamagotchi.
Fuck.
And you better be able to take care of that, like that sack of flour that people gave you as a kid in school to take care of a fake baby. It's a little bit like that.
So I had a question because earlier on I said we'd probably loop back around to it, and
we're circling back around.
This may be taking, Alex, your original question to a little bit of a tangent, but I've had this idea that a lot of people I compare it to taking a walk in the woods, where most people see a path before them and they want to stick to it because it is established, it is, trusted. I think a example that most people might more easily digest is, you go to the restaurants that Yelp says are good in town. But if you take that chance and you go with the one that maybe doesn't have such glowing reviews, or you go to that hole in the wall, sometimes you're going to fucking shit your guts out, but sometimes you're going to find something that is your new fucking hidden gem, your absolute glory place. Is that I feel like with the whole idea of NPCs and everything, of people who are not awake, it's this at some point conscious decision to follow what is established or what is familiar, so it must work. And a lot of people are afraid to take a machete and go and just chop down some of the overgrowth and forge their own path. Sometimes you're not going to get anywhere, and sometimes you're just going to do a lot of work for nothing, but other times you're going to find something glorious. So I don't know. I realize I guess I don't have a question related to that, but I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts?
I feel like the action that you take is less relevant to how real one could argue that one is, and what would be more relevant would be like whether they know they can, whether they're aware that that's possible, that that's capable, that they don't have to go with what's preset.
I think that a lot of the times, seeing as, to me, one of the definitions of magic is that it's an art form, just one of the definitions. I don't want to paint like Picasso. I don't want to paint like Rembrandt. I don't want to paint like Frazetta.
It would just be an imitation.
I want to paint like D.H. Thorne, who understands how Frazetta and Picasso and Rembrandt did what they did. And that doesn't require that I master Picasso, Rembrandt, or Frazetta. It just means that I've looked at what they've done. I'm inspired by what they've done. I learn a few techniques that lets me do what I want to do and then channel that. And magic works the same way. And that is sort of like what you're talking about with that getting off the beaten path thing. I will follow a trail for a little while. Then I'll see a bunny off in the woods. And in typical ADHD fashion, I go chase that bunny because fuck your trail. You're probably an asshole and I don't want to be like you. So not for nothing, there are blinds built into pretty much every system of magic that I know of, short maybe of those of like people that are authors that I'm friends with. And there may even be some blinds in there too. Some of them are intentional blinds. And to me, blinds can be either intentional or inadvertent. Some blinds are self-imposed. Blinds are genuinely, the worst kind of blind is an ego trap. And that is something where you give either intentionally or accidentally some sort of practice that someone gets trapped in for egoistic purposes. And it's designed to be a challenge to get over, whether it's intentional or not. But there are blinds littered throughout the stuff that we see. And because of that, I don't trust the nuts and bolts of what has been put out, neither in antiquity nor in contemporary magic so much. I will instead look at what they've done. And this is one reason why I'm glad I had my non-dual awakening first, because it's really a shit show if you got to go the other way around. And I will apply what I understand, what I see, what I know to be myself, and the things that implies to the methods that they're showing. And then I'll just use them as inspiration because I like the theme, or I like the use of this herb, or hey, there's a pattern there I never thought of even thinking about before. Sometimes it's something stupid. Like the other day I was talking about Eddie, and I was not talking about Eddie, but I was talking to Eddie about my book that I'm struggling to finish. And he said something very basic, something ridiculously basic, something that is like, it's like, you got to take the cap off the ketchup to pour it, right? And it was something like of that level. And it blew my mind. And of course, the writing is flowing again. And so sometimes I've got to look at basic stuff. I got to look at some system I don't like. And what is here that I missed that I can emulate a little bit? That's a basic.
Computer programmer's rubber duck.
Yeah. I appreciate so much that you know that.
I don't, but I can sort of intuit
Flesh
the reference.
Priest is your rubber duck.
Flesh Priest is my rubber duck.
I kind of am.
Uh-oh. I don't know if I like that. That's kind of...
Just take me in the bath with you.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I probably would, Fleshy, just to disappoint you so that you stop fantasizing about me all the time. I'm just kidding. But oh man, how do I follow up the rubber ducky thing? I just can't. I'll just shut up. That's a message from the.
You want to know how to combat
non
duality? Just bring the rainbow flag into the equation. Just throw it all off.
Just remember, non-duality is not merely. It is certainly not the sum of its parts. It is actually more than that. So, it is the rainbow without differentiation between the colors. They are all the flag. It is all the rainbow.
Oh.
So no matter which color of the rainbow you are, you're really all of them, and you had better get with that agenda. I'm just kidding.
Oh man, you almost had the perfect ending statement right there. Like that just seems like, okay, episode over, wrap it up. Perfect closing statement.
I had to poop on it.
We concluded with the lesson. Fucking well done. I don't even know how to follow that. The fucking rubber ducky and everything.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish. Could you at least tell me what the reference is from, so maybe I can go find it or find it?
So any programmer, anyone that does code, if they get caught in their code, have a rubber duck on their desk that
a pack of cigarettes
and walk through the entire code step by step like they're talking to a person. So they find their mistake when they explain it.
I see. Oh, okay. That's different than I thought it was like a stress ball. I was thinking like stress ball.
No, it's a computer programmer
Oh, I get it. So that's why Fleshy's saying he's my rubber ducky. All right. Well, you're one of them then, Fleshy, for sure.
Yeah, it's like in a way, it's kind of like a stress ball because it's when you reach that moment of there's no way forward. You just need to talk through the entire process, in the
you
most
could argue these
simple
streams are
terms
my
you
rubber
could.
ducky.
I mean, yeah.
We're all a rubber duck, really.
Oh, that's so cute. Yeah, we're all kind of like a rubber duck. Alex, you're my rubber duck too. Fuck it, all y'all. EA's my rubber duck. CM's my rubber ducky.
The Discord's really just your giant.
It's just a giant rubber ducky
coping mechanism.
It is, especially the political channel. Holy shit, that is a rubber. That rubber ducky is soft from how much I squeeze that fucker.
So this is kind of a total fucking tangent, but one thing that I always find kind of funny is that, so out of curiosity, just before I get to that, do you know what your dad's doing right now? Like right at this moment?
About an hour ago, I heard a fire, I heard a dab rig, and then I heard him coughing his ass off.
I miss that dude. Tell him to call me soon. It's been a little minute.
So where I was going with it is I find it funny because I know he lurks in the chat sometimes and he doesn't say anything, and I feel kind of bad sometimes because like he's such a figure that like the moment that he wants to contribute, everybody's like, oh, fucking EA's in the house, better jump on and let him know. Like, guys, just chill sometimes, just chill. Just let him just be here. And
he actually really likes to be just one of the guys when it comes to, like, I know he does. Like, I mean, he likes the attention too, but I also know that he wants to be argued with. Like, that's one of the things, like, he told me one time. He's like, you want to like stage an argument online just so we can like have differing opinions or something? I mean, so, I don't know. I don't love that myself, but he, and that's one of the things I respect about him is that he genuinely doesn't, at least not, I'm not saying he doesn't want respect. We all want respect, especially when we earned it. But he wants to be seen as when he wants to make an appearance, he wants to be one of us, right? That's how I feel. I know, like with me, that's how it feels. Whenever I hang out with him, it's not, there's no competition in our veins. Like, we just talk.
I've
go ahead,
seen
Alex.
him type out comments like on your lives very, very slowly, press the send button and then go boom. He's aware of the reaction he gets for sure.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, and well, it's just like, I beat myself up a little bit internally the moment that I brought it up because, like, Alex, when you get on, I don't want you to be like, and I hate it because I know some people will see it this way. Like, I don't want you to be, oh, this is EA's kid. So I
didn't say that. I don't want it to be, because I know Alex is here for Alex, and EA wants her here for Alex.
It's like, fuck that. Yeah. You were not your attachments or anything. Like, you were just interesting, like, full stop. And your relation to anybody else isn't a value judgment on here.
Well, look at the title I gave this chat. Look at the title I gave this. It's the future. Sorry, Alex, I just want to say the title of this chat is the future of what is it, dark magic or whatever, because Alex represents what will be in a few years, right? Whether if you want it, I mean, and for someone in your age bracket, you're very advanced.
Thank you.
You just are. You can not just keep up. You have your own ideas. All kids do, all young people do, all adults do. But you've got, I don't think it's just because your father is EA Quetting. I think that you have a genuine, like Wyatt. I mean, I give Wyatt flack because he's got some ego issues, but I do love Wyatt. He's a very smart guy, very smart, especially for a 14-year-old. He knows a lot of shit. And I'm hard on him because of it. I think he needs that. But in a similar vein, you are advanced beyond your years. You would have been in my crew probably, and I would have been in your crew. We probably been, or maybe we would have butted heads. I don't know, because I wasn't that mature back then. But I would have probably, depending upon the attitude we had with each other, I probably would have wanted you there when I was channeling demons when I was younger, because I would have saw you as someone who knew a lot more than I did at your age, for that matter. So, and I'm not saying that like, oh, you're a kid, so therefore this. I'm saying, even for an adult, there's adults who couldn't keep up with what you talk about. So it's not about your father. Your father's cool, and I say that because he's my friend, but you're not here because of your father necessarily. Your father's who introduced us, so that helps. But
I have that understanding, and because I have that understanding, being referred to as EA's kid doesn't bug me, because that's also that's the way to explain it.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you've gotten flack because of it too. Maybe not in your real life, but certainly in the current sphere of bullshit going on in the world, I'm sure you've gotten some flack over it, or would if you were more social media type. So, I mean, it's not like you're paying your dues either. It's not like you're not paying your dues. I mean, there's a pro and a con to everything,
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad my son didn't get into these things. I'm kind of glad that this isn't what he's into. He respects it, but he's not into it.
I feel like on a certain level, you can't get into it, at least not the same way for most people. Just like, oh, I can't listen to that. That's my dad's music.
Well, especially since it appeared in his life so much later, because remember, I only jumped back into this, I guess, 3 years now. I was only about this like 3 years ago, and it's been a big dramatic change in our lives and in our house. It's not.
Yeah. When I knew you, when I first met you, you were just some fucking dude who dressed in black and fucking liked H.P. Lovecraft and shit. And now look at that. Now look at me. What the fuck am I doing with my life? I'm on this fucking stream. What the fuck have I become?
What have I become? D.H. Thorne's friend. Everyone else goes away in the end. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I was telling somebody, or was I writing it? My Lifeline. My grandmother read my Lifeline when I was younger. And there's different ways to read all that shit. She read my Lifeline, and my Lifeline split. And it's got a big break in it. Like there's a split and some parallel lines for a little while. And the first half is just fucking line across, like all these hardships. But the second half is smooth sailing and goes right to the heart line and just blends right into it. Like the path of your life is going to follow your heart eventually, and it's going to be what you want it to be. But you got to go through some hard shit, and then you're going to reinvent yourself. Basically, you're going to come out of your chrysalis. You're going to become who you really are. And I think I'm right at that. Like I'm right in the middle of that split where the two lives are starting to come apart, and the other one's going to eventually end. Not quite at the ending of it yet, but I'm right in the middle of my Lifeline, we'll say. So I figure I got another 40 years left to go if we go that way. And I think my grandmother was really accurate without meaning to be, because I don't know if she would have appreciated me talking about it, because she just did it for fun. She wasn't like into magic and shit. But I do feel
you
like...
You fucking sinner boy. You...
Well, here's the weird shit, right? There's definitely psychic shit in my family. On my mother's side, she and I, if I fart, she says, keep it down. And she could be three towns away. This, Fletcher, because I'll be like, my mom's going to call any second. She does. It's not me being psychic. It's like we're connected like twins or some shit. And she always calls it the most inconvenient. I should probably call now because I'm talking about it.
Yeah. Everybody just wait 10 minutes. And when his phone starts ringing, you'll know.
Yeah, it happens a lot. Not all the time, but it does happen a lot. Then... On my father's side, though, my grandmother was a weird character because she had that look in her eyes. Like she was dark triad as hell, but looked like a normal person, and very, very manipulative, and probably a very, integrated vampire, we'll say, is how I'd put it, because she knew what she was doing, but she was also kind of benevolent about it, even though she would do that shit. But anyway, she was, my family on my father's side was pretty Christian, although my grandfather was the real Christian. My grandmother really wasn't. Like, she'd say, oh, I believe in Jesus, but I'm not practicing. And she'd paint pictures of Jesus. Then she'd paint pictures of the devil too, and hell, and all kinds of stuff. So she was an interesting character.
That's where I want a vacation when I die.
I don't know, man. Like, that's the thing. So I would argue that, at least some of the weird shit comes from her more directly than anybody in some ways. So, maybe she was like someone who in another world would be. I don't know. Hard to say.
I wonder sometimes how much, there's that whole concept of certain like closed practices and everything of like this.
Oh, you mean the video I just did?
The one that I have yet to watch, I'm sorry. So maybe I'll tread some common ground, but the idea of closed practices and everything, and there's some where you can only be born into this practice of. I really feel like with some of those things, it's not so much about being born into it necessarily as like this is in your blood, this is what you were made to be, but rather it flows in the family because there was somebody there to give you a certain perspective on things. That's the more important part. That's the change that happens from generation to generation, is affecting our outlook to allow these manifestations to flow through us.
How about this? If you look back in anybody's family tree, there's somebody who is a witch or some kind of freaky person. The person who notices it, like, it tells me more, to use your phrase, it tells me more about you that you noticed it than tells me about anything else. I think that almost everybody, if they look, will find something somewhere in a few generations back that their aunt, their uncle, their father, their grandfather, their great-grandmother, whatever, someone in their bloodline was into some weird freaky shit. I think it's pretty inevitable. So the whole idea, like, oh, you got to be in a bloodline. No, I think you just got to recognize that someone in your family, like, if you want to play that game, it's more about that it's like, what's the, not confirmation bias, but it's like, when you go looking for a phenomenon, you see the phenomenon.
Yeah. We find what we look for.
Yeah. You find what you're looking for in that case, I think. And I mean, yeah, some people got more wild examples than others. I mean, for example, I talk about my great blood relative, we'll just say, who, 33rd degree Mason, one of the richest people on earth at the time, and it gives me a certain sense of connection to lots of weird shit, we'll say. But that doesn't mean that makes me special. In fact, I'm basically, borderline poverty level, and so his riches didn't affect me. If I went to a Freemason temple and said my great whatever was this person, they'd be like, oh, that's nice. The door's over there, unless you've got something to really, offer. So it's not, it doesn't really get you anything. It's like that and a nickel will get you a cup of coffee, as they used to say. It doesn't make you special.
It's a Dumbo's feather that you can hold on to tell yourself you're special, so you can do the actual special things that you've had. Yeah,
it is like, I love that Dumbo's feather. Beautifully said. Love it.
It feels to me like a form of gatekeeping too. Is just like, you have to be born into this bloodline, like completely disregarding the people who, don't necessarily know their bloodline or any of that. Like, as far as they're concerned, their fucking bloodline begins with them, as they don't know anything beyond that. It's just
absolutely. I don't want to reiterate everything in my. If you guys haven't seen it, go watch my last video. It says "closed to the likes of you." The point of that. Now, I tried to be diplomatic, and I had somebody, Brandon Knight, who's been on this channel before. He kind of was a little bit more harsh, and I don't mean that like he was bad. I mean, like, he was a little bit more blunt,
critical,
more critical of the statement. And I actually more agree with him than I even do with what I said, to be honest, because I'm trying to be diplomatic. I'm trying to respect other people's perspectives on it. But generally, when someone says this practice is closed, that's where things can be occulted come in. Meaning, I'll still practice it, but I just won't tell you about it. I don't believe in closed practices, really. That doesn't mean that there isn't something to be said for people, respecting that
there's a difference between shitting all over it and, using it.
Have respect for it, at least.
It's like I respect people who certain members of the community who will adopt things despite it being closed practice and like doing it genuinely. Like, fuck, if it's
done genuinely, I don't think it's usually closed anyway. Like, when people say it's closed, that's usually a very tiny minority of hardline people who are either bigoted, racist, or some other ist that is generally frowned upon by sane people. That doesn't mean that there aren't, like, if you watch my last video on it, that doesn't mean that there aren't reasons to be respectful when someone says it's a closed, one of the reasons people say it's a closed practice is because people will I hate to use the word colonize, I don't believe in that word, but they will they will appropriate the culture as a costume or something, and it is, to some people, it betrays their sensitivities. And
yeah, it's the fucking, it's the Native American headdress at Coachella.
Yeah, it can be. And I've known many Native Americans who get offended by that and some who don't. And who am I supposed to listen to? And if someone says, well, you only listen to the ones who get offended, then I go, okay, what if it's just one person? Does that mean if one person in the world says, whatever you do offends me, I have to stop breathing? No. So we got to have a line of rational, somewhere there's a line, where it is exactly depends on the person, I suppose. It's up to you whether you care, whether they care what they say or not, in my opinion. If you don't care that it bothers them, who am I to judge either of you, to be honest with you?
I'm also going to walk back on what I said a little bit, because with closed practices, I do actually consider myself a practitioner in that I believe that we only allow cool people on this stream and cool people in this chat and Discord.
Yeah. And look, people can be tribal all they want. Tribalism doesn't really achieve anything, especially in the modern world. It's actually probably the worst thing you can do to yourself. But if it makes you feel special, if that's your Dumbo feather, that you think it's a closed practice and that makes you more powerful, I'm not going to be mad at you for thinking that, but it doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to act on what you believe, right? I'm not going to give you that power just because you say it's closed. I'm not going to look at it. But honestly, my harshest thing that I would say about it is if your practice is closed, that is to say, if the practice itself is closed and it's not just your opinion, if that practice says no white people, for example, if the practice says that, then there's nothing there for me of value anyway. I know there isn't, because such an ideology just probably is based on dead earth anyway. There's nothing there that's probably, it's like, why would I do Christianity if to be a Christian, I have to sell my soul to God, right? I mean, it's that I'm just not going to be Christian.
There might be magic in the melanin.
But it doesn't mean that you have to be of dark skin color, by the way. Melanin would be in the brain, according to that philosophy, by the way. Melanin is it's not in your skin, although often it's a signifier, according to those people. Melanin is in the brain. That is where the melanin that they're talking about is, by the way.
I don't even know. I was just trying to make a joke.
Well, I know, because I've heard that because I'm into that shit, knowing these things. I've run across that argument that it's melanin oriented. The melanin is not just skin color. There's some people who think so, but if you look at where melanin is, it's in the brain too. So some people can be white on the outside and melanin on the inside, if you will. So
I'm not just bringing this up because I feel like we're towing dangerous waters here, but
yeah, a little bit.
You've been rather silent, Alex. Is there anything that you want to talk about?
I've been pretty no comment for the towing waters most.
Yeah, I'm also throwing you a line because that feels like we're getting political, and we know I don't like to go there.
It's only political if you want it to be. I think it's actually a spiritually important question. Look, who has a right to tell you what spirituality you can practice? Nobody. Period. Nobody. If anybody tries to convince you otherwise, get the fuck away from them. They're an asshole. No one has the right to tell you that you can't speak to a spirit or practice this or that. Spirituality is up to you. And if your race or your gender or anything else means you can't do something, go fucking die in a fire. I mean that allegedly. I don't mean that literally, Susan Wojcicki.
Not to be political.
I genuinely feel that way. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't be respectful, though. I mean, you can have both feet firmly planted in reality. You can be respectful and be open to everything at the same time. Doesn't mean that like I said, I refuse to. If that means that I get a lynch mob after me, fuck them. I don't care. Come get me. You're not going to scare me with it, but I'm also going to be respectful about it. I'm not going to be like, well, this week I'm wearing my Indian headdress as
I've heard the quote I like quite a bit. I can respect your opinion if you can respect my existence. Mm-hmm. If your opinion doesn't stop anyone from living non-harmfully in their own way that doesn't affect you, then it's fine.
It's the difference between an existential difference and just a difference of opinion. If we can have a difference of opinion but not try to change each other, like especially with force, will probably be okay. But there are some, of course, ideologies that are existential threats. You know, somebody who's into slavery or something like that. That's an existential threat. I can't tolerate that. But if it's, oh, I think that that there's a difference between us, or I don't care. That's your opinion. I don't care about that. You know, it's like the whole non-aggression policy that I have in life in general. You know, so I apply that to everything. I'm not here. Like I said, one thing I will say, which I think I said in my last video. You don't go around claiming that you're a shaman or a I don't know, a vulva or whatever the hell else, if that's not what you actually are.
Did you say a vulva?
No, not a hoo-hoo. I'm talking about the it's V with the special O, LVO, the priestess of you know, certain Norse pagan.
You're trying really hard not to sound it out again, huh?
Yeah,
okay.
I don't want to have to.
I just am apparently very unfamiliar with that. I heard. Okay, never mind.
Well, I'm basically saying don't act like you're a grandmaster of the Soto school of Zen if you've never even, you know, talked to a fucking monk before. You know what I mean? Like don't adopt things that were like certain things. Like, would I call myself a Harvard graduate? No, never. So why would I call myself you know, a satanic priest of the Church of Satan? Well, I wouldn't. Why would I call myself a Native American shaman? Well, I'm not, because I've never done that. Could I say I'm a shaman because I do shamanistic practices? Sure. Could I say that it's like saying I'm a martial artist, but of what specific type? I can't say, because I don't have the degree of certain types. I have certain. So all I'm saying is that certain titles and certain spiritual clothing, we'll say. I don't mean literal clothing. I mean spiritual trappings. To be respectful of where they come from, you should probably obtain them through that source. My view is, why would you want to? Why not just do what you do and let it all be what it is? You know?
Well, yeah, and I guess you just answered the question I'm about to pose, but, you know, I feel like with any path, with any working, there's going to be an already established, you know, route. Is why do you want to follow along with the path that somebody else has already laid out to get the same things they have? It seems so much more beneficial, rather in the selfish or the collective mindset. Either one you choose, it seems more beneficial to forge your own path and get whatever knowledge, whatever, you know, rewards or not that you get from doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the difference would be those who draw benefit versus comfort.
Mm-hmm. And for some people, it's a religion.
Willing to be uncomfortable in order to learn or form your own opinions, because it's better to go along with everything you've known. The stationary.
Yeah. I think for some people, it's a religion too, and it's, you know, they feel like I'm going to hell if I do it wrong.
You get so scared of picking up the machete.
That thing's sharp, dude.
I was sorry. I should have established my metaphor of, you know, forging your own path in the woods. You get so scared of picking up the machete of, oh, I might get cut. Oh, there might be blackberry thorns.
I got this. Let's go.
Sasquatch is gonna get me if I go off the path. So therefore, I should stay on the path, man. There
are people who will yell at you for having a kukri, which if you ask a Nepalese person, they'd say, what's wrong with having a kukri? So, I mean, that's the thing. There are people that they have nothing better in their lives except to be victimized. And that's how they validate their egos. I'm not saying that to diminish the fact that some people are legitimately oppressed or something for certain things, but there are some people who exist to be oppressed. They are psychic vampires who feed upon, you know, other people pitying them or whatever the fuck. And it's very real. In fact, some of the people that are, you know, harassing us or harassing EA or whatever, that is their MO. They like to be victims because it gives them power. Everything they do is revolving around what sort of, you know, how they can be victimized.
They draw the attention and energy to themselves, and they can vampirize it to feed off it because they're miserable.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that I don't like about wokeism, because there's a lot of psychic vampires in the woke I don't mean tolerant. I don't mean being nice to people. I don't mean treating people like human beings. I mean that crazy woke culture. It's very, very, very much filled with, I know psychic vampires. I happen to be one. I smell my own, okay? I know where they are. And that's one of the places that they are very, very active. And those are the unawakened ones, by the way. They don't generally know that that's what they are. Some do, though. Some do. And the ones that do are very dangerous if they keep using that as a weapon. So, and I don't see that as politics. That's a spiritual thing, too. That is a very spiritual thing. It is a problem that people have. It's a psychiatric, psycho-spiritual issue. And it'll run its course. Give it another couple of years. It'll start to run its course. But it's an immaturity in the human psycho-spiritual phenomenon that we do this thing where we derive power from being, victimized and gain the pity from everybody else, or go on these war paths of destroying our enemies using the virtue of having been martyred for something that you weren't really attacked for, shit like that. It's all over the place. And it's a vampire thing. I might even do a video about it at some point so that Fleshy won't turn bluer than he's already looking. So
Hey, I'm supposed to look purple, but these colors do weird things on camera.
You sort of look purple. I don't know. Which kind of purple is it? It's like a blue purple.
It's somewhere on the flag.
I'd say it's a purple. Yeah, I'd say it's a purple.
That's purple.
Yeah, it's a purple.
I have a question to pose for you. Everyone looks at vampire in an inherently more negative light. What would you say some of the benefits of being an energy vampire are for you?
There's tons. The thing is that what makes a vampire negative is not realizing it, not integrating it. And some people are hopelessly negative. Like some people as vampires are always bad. It's just cooked into their who they are. I'm not saying that no one can change, but just like you can't change cancer, or just like you can't change having, a missing leg or something. There's definitely things about us that we can't change. And certain types of vampires, certain individuals, there's no hope of integrating and becoming a symbiotic vampire rather than a parasitical one. So a vampire that is parasitical, they generally don't gain much benefit from being a vampire. They're like a baseline. They can be very toxic and destructive and powerful in that way, but they are genuinely ineffective as people. They genuinely, they don't really go anywhere. I don't know how else to put it. Their whole world is revolving around feeding off of society and individuals in some way. But people who integrate it, or have the potential to integrate it anyway, can become symbiotic. And a symbiotic vampire is one that somehow reciprocates their feeding in some positive way. So if you're a psychic vampire, especially if you're attracted to suffering, or if you're attracted to even ego inflation of your own, you find a way to do that in a helpful way so that you're exchanging whatever it is that the other person needs for what you need. And you got to be careful you don't take too much of if you're drawn to negative energy, if you take too much of that into yourself without finding a way to ground it and send it back out, or process it and utilize it, you can of course become more negative. So you can become addicted to the negative. That's usually what an unawakened vampire does. But an awakened one, so to give you an example, I bring this up all the time. When someone is having a problem around me, there are some people I won't go near because they're actually feeding off of me when they do it. But some people, when they're having a problem, I come running like, what's the matter? Tell me all about it. I'll do what I can to help you. Because that is a way for me to feed, but also it's a reciprocal thing. I do genuinely want to help. It's not that I give that much of a shit about Fleshy. I do, but it's not that I'm like, I will drop what I'm doing because I'm actually like, that's kind of good. Yep, tell me more. We'll try that. Have you tried? And I repay that with what I would want to have as good advice. I repay that with the best of my ability or even to uplift them and give them positive thoughts. So that is what it means. So how does that make you, what are the positives? Well, for one thing, besides if you want to talk about like mundane powers, like, oh, what can you do with it? Makes you really good at energy work in magic. Makes you really good at it, whether it be...
Makes you really good at finding people that wear fishnets and all black and smoke cloves.
That too. Yeah. You can smell the goth club from a million miles away. But it's I mean, there's definitely things you can use there if you become attuned to it and you start developing practices around it, intentional practices. You can, by the way, was it 10 minutes? Was it 10 minutes? You can develop practices that begin by their methods of intentional feeding. As you learn to feed intentionally, you then take those practices and contort them and pervert them. It's like learning how to type hello word in a program and then use the basic things you learn from that to learn new things.
Back to programming references.
You get it. So you'll start by learning to feed safely and in a reciprocal manner. That teaches you energy work on a level that other people would have a little bit more difficulty doing. That's just one basic example of things that it would do for you better. It also means that you're more sensitive. Now, you might not be empathically sensitive. That is to say, I make a distinction between someone who's sensitive and strictly empathic. Strictly empathic means you don't have a barrier between you and what other people feel. It means you take on what they're feeling and not necessarily in a nice way. It means that if someone's upset, you're upset. If they're happy, you're happy. That's not what you want to be. That's actually an unfortunate bad thing about being empathic. It doesn't necessarily make you better at dealing with people. It actually make you worse at it because you tend it tends to just build, make you crazy. Someone who's really sensitive though. So I'm highly sensitive. I'm not very empathic. I can't feel what you feel. That is to say, if you're feeling sad, I don't feel sad with you. But I can know that you're feeling a certain way sometimes before you even do. Sometimes.
Just because you're not empathic doesn't mean you're not psychic.
You can be even more sensitive when you're not empathic, believe it or not, because an empathic person will get trapped on what they're feeling. A sensitive person, unless they're sensitive in an egoistic way, and that happens to me sometimes, like if I feel insecure and I sense that someone doesn't like me, that can fuck me up. So I have to build up a wall with that sometimes. But as a vampire who's highly sensitive, that means I can walk into a place and generally know what the mood of the room and the people are. That gives me an elevated advantage on manipulating them, on helping them, on harming them, on anything you can imagine that's social.
Are you a cop? Sounds like a cop thing.
I can make a cop look like a fool. No, I'm kidding. Well, I mean, just to give an example, when I used to do the little bit of bouncing work that I did, you learn to read a room. You learn to tell, are they going to fight or are they just roughhousing? Are they going to fight or are they just having an argument? When should I step in and when should I run away? So that's just an example of it. But in more actual things, you can become a really good salesman. You can learn how to pressure people or to lay off of people. And so there's all kinds of, do you want to be Machiavellian about it or you want to be a healer and a helper about it? Do you want to, which dark triad do you want to give into versus how do you want to help people? So it's not a simple answer because there's the things that it helps with are subtle by nature, but they pay off big dividends if you integrate them. If you learn to recognize what you're doing and then work with it, then you'll do better. And I mean in everything. Will you live longer? Do you get immortal? I don't know. All that shit's in the movies, dude. I think there's a lot of, there's nothing to it. I mean, if you read my book, The Infernal Vampire, you'll see some of my opinions about those things that do seem uncanny and weird. But is it a rule? No. Have I noticed that people who are legitimate vampires have certain traits that distinguish them and I can notice it? Yes. Does it mean that they are supernatural? Never in my experience, no. It's usually just a subtle shift of certain qualities in them. And psychic vampires are absolutely the most common and you see them everywhere. And if you know where to look, especially if you know how to protect yourself against them, you may find that they're attracted to certain kinds of people, and you'll find that some people will be just orbited by psychic vampires all over the fucking place. And you're just like, how do I help this person? Damn. Psychic vampires, the worst kind, will be attracted to people with a generous spirit who want to help others. I've got a friend, might even be still watching this show. They fell prey to a psychic vampire recently. in a bad way. And it was all because they were just genuinely trying to be a helpful, good person. And they got preyed upon because of it. So you can see these things. And however, to know the full details of what you can do with it, same thing anybody else can do with energy work abilities and sensitivities. And it doesn't mean you're better at it. It just means like, you know, it's like I'm a little taller so I can reach a higher shelf without stepping on a ladder. It's kind of like that. You know, it's an advantage.
Would it be fair to say it's not it's not a pro or a con, it's just a different experience, a different way to
you'll have pros at some things and cons at others, and it's a trade-off. It's like, you know, being an orc in D&D versus being an elf. I mean, you get a +2 here and a -2 over there, and it doesn't make you better overall. No, of course not. You know, I mean,
I feel like that's also, you know, goes in with it's not better or worse. It's all depending on how you use it. So if you play to your strengths, it is absolutely a boon.
Yeah, of course it is.
You're just going to be more sensitive to fire.
Nah. Well, yeah, actually, that's weird. I don't like touching hot pots. My wife can sit there like she's got asbestos hands. She can pick up a hot pot. I can't touch it. But I can run my hand through a flame and not get burned. So I don't know, whatever. I'm kidding. I could get burned just like anybody else. No, I mean, we've got to separate the fantasy from the reality. And if we can't do that, you really get screwed up. And there's times I really love the vampire stuff. And then there's times I really groan about it because it's just so, it has become this trope. It has become this joke. It has become this thing that it's like, stop wearing my life as fashion, guys, please. You know, it's like that. And that doesn't mean I don't get really excited at the prospect of going to a vampire club or something, but whenever I go, ew, no, I don't like all this cultish behavior and all of this cliquish shit. Ew, that's worse than a regular goth club. I thought regular goth clubs were fucking cliquish and shit. This is really bad. You know, what's all this lingo that you expect me to know? You're not a real vampire. You don't know what a clan is. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You know? So, I don't know. I'm rambling. Shut me up.
I feel like you would have mixed experiences with the vampire club.
Well, I know from the 90s what they were like, and I had mixed experiences then.
I feel like you would feel right at home the moment that you walked in, you saw a fucking bloodletting table and a fucking, you know, statue to Lucifer.
Yeah, like, I'd be like, okay, I found my people until I talk to people and I go, ew, you're just the same as everybody else.
You don't talk to
people. Walk in and there's a baby on the altar.
Is this an adrenochrome thing? Ew, I can't be here.
No. That only happens on islands. Islands that politicians.
And it really does.
I made it political.
That's not political. That's reality.
Oh, that hurt too much. That's too real.
That's too real. It really is. So, all right, guys. I think we're going to wrap it up in a minute. Let's give Alex an opportunity to. Have you got any socials or anything you want to boost or anything you want to tell the people at home about?
No, nothing comes to mind.
Nothing? All right, cool. Well, in case you guys didn't know, this is EA's daughter, so we can always give EA the props. Go to balg.co, buy everything, and have a good time. You can also go to my link in the Linktree. You can buy all my crap. I will be very soon, once I get my temple set up, if just for the fact I want to use it for fun, I'm going to be going back on the market for doing rituals again more openly and actively. So watch this space. I will be offering probably some preset rituals again. I don't want to do just, can you get my ex-lover back rituals? I'm sick of that shit. Give me something more my speed, and we'll see. So that'll be coming.
Something you can sink your teeth into.
Yeah, I do have that one fang, but I broke the other ones off. But so yeah, then I got my books. That's what I was hanging up in front of the screen there a minute ago. If you want to support my work, go to the Linktree. There's a lot of ways you can do that. I would rather you buy a product or a service than just send me money for free. But I do have a weekly meditation class not weekly, excuse me, it's bi-weekly right now, bi-weekly meditation class. So it's at least 2 a month that we do, and they're over an hour long usually. There's sometimes an info dump, sometimes it's an actual instruction class where we talk about magic and ritual, but it's also a meditation class. Often it's guided meditation. Sometimes it's transcendental, mantra meditation. There's always different things that we do. People are really enjoying it, and I really appreciate my regulars. Thank you guys so much for that. And it's $20 a month. Where else can you get good training, you know, for $20 a month, twice a month? Nowhere. Those places are going to be like $50 a session or something. It's $20 a month, guys. It's not bad. So join that if you're interested. And if you can't make it, they're all recorded so you can watch them later. So, all right, I think that's all my crap, Fleshy. Oh, and my Etsy store. I think it's a little underpopulated at the moment, though. My wife is between projects because our kid just moved out. So she kind of has been not doing as much. Oh, these guys, I still have to get with Elena. These will be coming out soon. For those who haven't seen them, Become the Maelstrom features this. Elena finally figured out how to help me make these. And so I will be offering these for a very reasonable price, actually, probably in the 45 range. So very reasonable price. Awesome freaking medallion. I love it. It's my favorite medallion now. Like, probably because I invented it. So
they do look pretty fucking sick.
Yeah, yeah, and they feel sick. They feel sick. So, all right, Alex, anything you want to end us on? I'm gonna, since you seem like the sleepy one, I'm gonna put you on the spot.
No, nothing.
If you seem like the sleepy one, then I am clearly hiding things better than I thought.
I'm basically Colin Robertson from What We Do in the Shadows. So anyway, guys, I want to wish you guys a really good night, and I hope to see you guys next week. I will be doing an interview with somebody very soon. Shit, I forgot his name all of a sudden. I feel really bad. I have to contact him on email, but it's probably going to be sometime in the next 2 weeks.
No, you didn't forget. You're just, you're just leaving it a surprise.
Yeah, it's something skeptic. What the hell was his name? I'll have to, oh man. I really feel weird. It's he's got a cool show though. He's got like really cool. I'll find it and I'll promote it when I get to it. So watch this space for that too. I'll be on somebody else's channel soon. Yeah. So I think that's it, Fleshy. I think that's everything. I don't know. I hate this part.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You know what? I'll just do it then. Everybody, fucking be excellent to one another. All you crazy bastards, bitches, non-binary witches. Just be gay and do crime.
Yeah. Or don't. Make that the crime. Fuck it. Make
or
everything
do.
a crime.
Be
a heretic in everything you do.
Doing.
Be a heretic in everything that you do. And then you'll be right. Probably not. All right, guys. Much love, much hate, everything else in between, and mind the shadows.
Later, fuckers.
Fuck you, laters.